All right, we're good to go.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the meeting of the Mayor and Council of Princeton. It's September 13th, 2021. And we'll start with the meeting notice statement, please.
Notice of this meeting was provided in accordance with the requirements of the Open Public Meetings Act and state regulations governing remote public meetings, including the date, time, and location of the meeting, and clear and concise instructions to the public for accessing the meeting and making comments. In addition, the agenda and all related materials were posted electronically and made available to the public on Princeton's meeting portal in advance of the meeting.
Thank you. Could we have the roll call?
Ms. Perrone-Lambros?
Here.
Ms. Niedergang?
Here.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Fraga?
Here.
Mr. Williamson?
Here.
Ms. Sachs?
Here.
Mayor Frida?
Here. Thank you. Okay, I just want to call to everyone's attention that item 11, the ordinance public hearing for ordinance 2021-26, which is the AHO 7 zone, the overlay zone, the affordable housing overlay zone. We will not be discussing that tonight. There was a problem with the public notice. It ends up that we need to send both registered and normal mail notice to everyone within 200 feet of that zone. So that hasn't been done yet. So we won't be able to have that public hearing this evening. We've also received some emails from people suggesting that they would like more opportunity to comment on that ordinance before we vote on it. So at our next agenda setting meeting, the council may want to discuss if it makes sense to have a work session on that. The advantage to that is then public could have a discussion with the council, and if there's any significant changes, those could be made before the ordinance is noticed again. If we don't do the work session and we decide to renotice it, and then at the meeting, if there's any significant changes, we'd have to pull it and then renotice it because you can't make significant changes at the public hearing. But we could talk about all that in the next agenda setting meeting, but I just wanted to let everybody get a pretty good idea of what was going on with that. Okay. So we have 2 sets of minutes to approve. If someone wants to, if there's no questions or corrections, if someone wants to make a motion on those. Eve, moving them both?
So move.
Thank you very much. Leticia seconding that. Thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay.
Aye.
Minutes are approved as posted. Announcements and reports. Council member Leticia.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I was actually going to give a report and announcement on behalf of our new Director of Human Services, which we are very thrilled to have on board, just started September 7th. But then I realized that several of the announcements I was going to make are on our municipal newsletter. So instead, I would like to encourage folks, if they're not already signed up for the newsletter, where one would receive regular updates, to go to the municipal website. And there's a link for signing up for updates. And so I just want to encourage everyone to do that. Also, something that some of us learned for the first time today, that we've actually we've received requests from, on several occasions, from members of the public and advocates about providing our information in other languages. And it wasn't until today that some of us realized that that option is already available on the municipal website. By going to the municipal website, there's a link, a button that's floating towards the bottom or sometimes in the center for selecting a language. So anyone can go on our website, select the language, and the information will be available in the preferred language. I tried it out and it works. So I just wanted to point that out. And that's all I have.
Leticia, thank you. And just let me just jump in with something about the newsletter, because there's a lot of information concerning the recent storm we had, the FEMA declaration. There's a lot of links on where to get help and who to contact and things like that. So it's another great reason for people to as Leticia said, go to the website and sign up for the newsletter if you haven't already. I mean, the newsletter has really turned into a very robust communication device, and there's a lot of information in there consistently. So anyway, Dwayne was next, and then Eve, if we could.
Okay, thanks, Mayor. Just got a few things to report from some of my liaison BCCs. The first is the Recreation Department with oversight from the Recreation Board finished up the summer season pretty strong. In spite of the fact that the storm at the beginning of September harmed the main pool, and so kind of messed up the grand finale, which would have been Labor Day weekend. But that being said, I just want to give a shout out to Evan Moorhead, who's the new executive director, and his staff over there for doing just a great job, offering a really wide menu of recreational options to our citizens and actually members of the surrounding community. Unfortunately, as most of us know, if not all of us know by now, Princeton Special Sports is no longer offering services locally. But something I think is extremely important to point out is that even with our non-Princeton Special Sports recreation programs, the Recreation Department really goes out of his way to make these inclusive for different people of different abilities. So, of course, you can always learn more about the offerings on the municipal website, and they have a very open front desk, which has actually remained open even during the height of the pandemic, to inform people who may need those services. The Affordable Housing Board is always working hard to reduce obstacles to folks who need affordable housing in town. Just want to give a special shout out to Carol Golden, who's one of our board members, and also, of course, is well known for running housing initiatives of Princeton, who worked with the Mercer County Board of Social Services to help Princeton households navigate the whole emergency rental assistance program. Out of the I think it started with I know it started with over $319,000, and they've spent it down, and that came from the CDBG funds. Is spent down to about $25,000 left in that. Also, the Affordable Housing Board is still advocating with the idea of removing obstacles to affordable housing, is working to actually create a regime where we can actually do background checks without Social Security numbers, because that has been something that's made it difficult for a lot of our community who are from other countries, and Princeton has a very high percentage of a very large part of our residents are from other countries and are not U.S. citizens. Princeton Housing Authority received, of course, some of the CDBG funding went to creating, to facilitating more Wi-Fi coverage. And right now they're still working on putting together the bidding package for a service provider to provide like group Wi-Fi to a lot of the Princeton Housing Authority sites. A few weeks ago, I know there's Maureen Fullaway, who runs our affordable housing office, talked about one of the problems, well, I guess you could call it a concern, was there is some issues with the roof areas of, let's say, for example, on Clay Street, and there's some concern about putting equipment up there. So they're working really hard. Princeton Housing Authority does a great job with, unfortunately, with very limited funds, and they try to do the best they can to provide excellent affordable housing for the very, I would say, low income population. And just a couple more things. For Corner House, David Erickson has, who was the longtime director of clinical services, has started as the new executive director of Corner House, and he's also doing two jobs right now. Also, he's still the director of clinical services as they work to find someone to fill that position. So we think that will be filled soon. I'll also mention there that Corner House is actually on top of the great services that has been providing Princeton for 50 years now, is actually expanding its services to include mental health services. In New Jersey, apparently, the state of New Jersey bifurcates between mental health services and substance abuse services. They're actually two separate licenses needed. So right now, Corner House is working to get those clinicians that are also licensed with mental health services to become part of the great programs they offer there. And I believe that's all the news that's fit to print. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, Dwayne. Eve was next.
Dwayne, did you just make that one up? I feel like I've heard it before.
I would say it's original, but I would not be telling the truth. I like to tell the truth. So.
Thanks, Mayor. I have three announcements I'd like to make. The Cannabis Task Force had its second public meeting this past Thursday, and we have another one which hopefully will be in person in Heinz Plaza this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. There'll be a Zoom link posted on the website as well. So if the weather doesn't cooperate, we'll move to that. But we invite you to come join us there. Another meeting of the Cannabis Task Force will be held through the auspices of the Witherspoon Jackson Neighborhood Association, but it will be open to the public. That will be at the Arts Council, indoors, but with a mask requirement. And the Cannabis Task Force will be the second item on the agenda following a discussion, and I understand a brief tour of some of the changes that will be made to Witherspoon Street. So the organizer of that estimated that the cannabis portion would probably start around 11:15. So that's what we'll aim for. And we appreciate hearing from, all our constituents on this issue. So please be in touch on the website. You can send us emails at the Cannabis Task Force link, or you can attend one of our public meetings. The Sewer Operating Committee is finalizing revisions to the ordinance that governs how both the sanitary and stormwater sewers operate. And hopefully that will be ready for council in September or October. And finally, the Sustainable Landscaping Project that I've updated this group on many times. I've been working with our attorney on the first draft of the actual ordinance that would reinforce the requirement for landscaping companies to register with the town and require that they provide proof of workers' comp insurance. Additionally, this ordinance will restrict the times and seasons that gas leaf blowers and some other gas-powered equipment can be used by both property owners and landscaping companies. The Sustainable Landscaping Steering Committee has been working on this ordinance and other measures to improve worker health and safety, as well as to improve the impact of landscaping practices on the environment. This ordinance is one step in a more broadly conceived effort to change the way that people in our community care for their property. So stay tuned. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Eve. Michelle was next, and then we'll get to Mia.
Just have to unmute. There we go. All right. Thank you. I have a report and a couple of announcements. I just want to report that the Community Center Feasibility Task Force has completed selecting the task force members. And I just wanted to extend a thanks to everyone who applied. We had a lot of great candidates. It's always hard to choose, but I just want to encourage those that applied and may not have been selected to continue applying because we really need your help. There's openings on some of our BCCs, other task force may come about. So please keep an eye out. And I just encourage you and thank you for your interest in serving. And then just one announcement I'd like to make is I just also like to thank all those people who donated for the Afghan refugees at our donation center. We set up very temporarily at Monument Hall. We're pretty overwhelmed. I want to give a special thanks and shout out to Julie Venema a new member of our staff in Patty Soul, and all the municipal staff members that helped cart things over to the Muslim Center and then went on to Fort Dix. I just want to say that right now we're asking residents to hold your donations because we're waiting for more guidance on what's needed. There's been such an overwhelming response that Fort Dix was overwhelmed with donations, but there are many ways to help. And we have that again in the newsletter. So if you're not getting the newsletter, please sign up for it. But there's a lot of really important information in our newsletter that comes out twice a week. And then my last announcement is pretty exciting. We have an author and a city planner. His name is Jeff Speck, and he's the author among many books, one very well known, which is Walkable Cities. And he'll be here on September 28th. He'll be giving a lecture that's open, free to the public, and everyone is welcome. It'll be at the Nassau Inn at 6:30 p.m. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Mia.
Yeah. Hi. I just want to report that the Master Plan Subcommittee finished the interviews of the candidates who had the firms that had applied to oversee the town's overhaul of its master plan. I think we've reached a final decision on that, and that will be announced at an upcoming planning board meeting. That's a really exciting process that will chart the future of the town, and hopefully there will be opportunities for everyone who's interested to serve on different committees that will participate in the process. So look forward soon. Everyone should keep a lookout for some announcements about how you can get involved. Also wanted to mention that the mayor and the administrator and staff met today with the Office of Planning Advocacy, the State Office of Planning Advocacy. Princeton has a regional centers designation, and it's up for renewal. And in that context, we had mentioned our concerns about the tensions between being a tree city and, taking care of our trees, but also being in a constant state of having our power lines knocked out by our trees. And really the only solution long-term is to bury the power lines. And of course, that has become prohibitively expensive based on prices set by PSE&G. So we mentioned that at a previous meeting, and apparently there's some interest at the state level in exploring what a plan could be to make that more viable for towns. And the mayor spoke very eloquently today about what that would require and how it would be. It would need to be a long-term plan, but Princeton would like to raise its hand to be the guinea pig. So we're hoping to continue that conversation. And that would really be a game changer for how we live here in Princeton, between caring for our trees and trying to keep our wires vertical. So, and just finally, one more thing I just wanted to let people know. I mentioned it at a previous council meeting, but I think not everybody heard that we do have a major process going on underway at the moment in the Public Works Department. And we have a consultant who is looking to start with the leaf and brush pickup and looking at how we can do it more sustainably and more cost effectively. And then he will be moving to explore our entire waste stream, recycling, compost, and landfill, and see again how we can do it more sustainably and more cost effectively. So that's will also be a very significant process that will change how we do things here in town. So that's it.
Thank you, Mia. Eve.
Mayor, I was just going to suggest, since people may have come on late and just scrolling through the names, I see some people who may be here because of the Witherspoon Street overlay. I was just going to suggest you repeat briefly what you had said.
Okay, thank you, Eve. Yeah, for anyone that might have joined in the last few minutes, at the beginning of the meeting, we announced that the public hearing on the Ordinance 2126, the Affordable Housing Overlay AHO-7 ordinance, will not happen tonight. There was a noticing problem. So we're not allowed to actually have that public hearing this evening. and the council will take up at its next agenda setting meeting how to move forward with that. So if you were here for that tonight, we will not be talking about the overlay zone ordinance tonight. So thank you. Thank you, Rita. Are there other council announcements or reports? Bernie, anything from the staff level under this part of the meeting you need to bring up?
Mayor, I just want to thank PFARS, fire, police, OEM, and everyone involved for a particularly well done 9/11 ceremony, recognizing the lives that were lost in Princeton and the families affected. So nice job to everyone involved.
Thank you, Bernie. Okay, moving on. David, you have an award of recognition, I believe.
I do. Our awardee is sort of struggling to get into the meeting, but I'm going to go ahead and present the award, and hopefully he'll be in time to acknowledge receipt by the time I finish. So this award is to the Reverend Bob Moore, who's the executive director of the Coalition for Peace Action. And it's on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of him joining the coalition, which I think had a different name when he joined. It was Coalition for Nuclear Disarmament, but it has evolved. And I'm going to read, we put together a proclamation appreciating Bob for all that he's done. I'm going to read a few segments of that proclamation. And then either Bob or Irene Goldman, who is the president of the coalition, will come on and say a few words. So, whereas Reverend Moore, shortly after joining the Coalition for Peace Action, organized and sent a chartered peace train with 1,400 supporters to the June 12, 1982 New York City demonstration in support of a nuclear weapons freeze with 1 million attendees, the largest demonstration in US history. And whereas the Coalition for Peace Action lobbied strongly for a binding US nuclear testing moratorium, which became law in 1992, preventing US nuclear testing to this day. And whereas Reverend Moore co-founded and remains in leadership of 2 national multi-faith efforts, National Religious Campaign Against Torture and Interfaith Network on Drone Warfare. And whereas the Coalition for Peace Action co-organized numerous large protests and lobby efforts against the Iraq War, both in Washington, D.C. and within our region, from before the war started in March 2003. In response to public pressure, President Bush set a 2011 deadline for withdrawal, and President Obama implemented it. And whereas the Coalition for Peace Action collaborated with groups across the country to support the successful Iran nuclear agreement in 2015, which kept Iran at least 1 year away from having nuclear weapons capability. And whereas the coalition's Ceasefire New Jersey campaign under CFPA's umbrellas helped pass over 20 gun safety bills in New Jersey since 2010. And whereas the coalition established chapters in just southeastern Pennsylvania in 2004 with ongoing staff to oversee the grasswork routes in that swing area. Now, therefore, be it resolved that Princeton Council wishes to commend Reverend Moore for his visionary leadership and long-term service to the Coalition for Peace Action, the Princeton community, the nation, and the world. And now, therefore, I'm reading this for you, Mark Frieda. Mark Frieda is the signatory. So, Mayor of Princeton, County of Mercer, State of New Jersey, on behalf of the Princeton Council, do hereby congratulate and recognize Reverend Moore for his service to our community and thank him for his dedication, devotion, and commitment. And furthermore, do hereby proclaim Wednesday, September 8th, so this is a few days ago, 2021, as Reverend Robert Moore Day in the municipality of Princeton, and call upon all citizens to hail Reverend Moore's outstanding service to the Princeton community with boisterous cheering and sustained applause.
This is the part for the boisterous cheering and sustained applause.
There you go.
Now's the time. So Irene has her hand raised. Adam, if you could promote her to be a panelist. Irene, you'll be kicked out momentarily and then brought in. If you can unmute yourself, Irene.
Oh, look at that. Now I see all the people. That's wonderful. Bob is actually on. So is he, but may I read something while you're figuring out how to find him, either under Timberlake Moore or under CFPA?
Okay, I think it's Timberlake Moore. Yeah.
Shall I?
Yes, please go ahead, Irene. And
okay.
Adam, if you can bring in Mary Timberlake and Dorothy T. Moore, it sounds like that's Bob's alias for the evening.
So on behalf of the Coalition for Peace Action, I express our most sincere gratitude and appreciation to the Princeton Municipal Council for their excellent recognition of our Executive Director, the Reverend Robert Moore. Princeton governing body and community have welcomed us all for all these many years, and we are so grateful for your recognition and proclamation for Bob. Reverend Bob Moore has been a superb team leader who has been a major factor.
Oh, because it was 2 emails.
Bob, you should mute yourself.
We can hear you, Bob.
We can hear you, Bob. So let me finish. Reverend Bob Moore has been a superb team leader who has been a major factor in the Coalition for Peace Action, being widely recognized as one of the most respected and effective grassroots peace groups in the country. We're so fortunate to have his leadership continue as he's reached his 40th anniversary as executive director. We also thank Council Member David Cohen for honoring our idea to surprise Bob on his actual anniversary date, September 8th, by presenting him with a copy of tonight's proclamation in person in advance of tonight's very special honor. We thank you so very much.
Thanks, Irene. Now you can unmute, Bob.
Can you hear me?
We can.
Hallelujah. It's a miracle.
Amen.
Well, I just want to say I am so appreciative of this recognition. It's been a wonderful place for the Coalition for Peace Action to be based as our regional headquarters right here in Princeton. I couldn't think of a better place to be based. And I just want to thank you all. I want to say some of the reasons that it's so special to be based here. There are world-class experts in this town, many of them, of course, associated with Princeton University on things like nuclear weapons and nuclear disarmament, but also on the climate catastrophe that's now unfolding before our eyes. And so we are so blessed to have them. They have generously shared their expertise. And we are so blessed to have such supportive citizens of Princeton for the kind of work we do to advance our permanent goals of the global abolition of nuclear weapons, a peace economy, and a halt to weapons trafficking. We have enjoyed really strong support. And finally, I also want to say a word of thanks to the government of this municipality. As you know, for a long time, it was 2 governments, Princeton Borough and Princeton Township. So a lot of changes have happened in these 40 years. But I do want to give a shout out for the leadership of the government of this town, because 3 times at least I can think of that you have passed resolutions in support of our work. One was for the nuclear weapons freeze, and along with that, the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty. I think both municipalities passed resolutions in support of those. And then also for ending the Iraq War. And so we've been very, very fortunate to have that kind of support, because the words and the support that you all give as local elected officials amplifies our voice to the higher levels of government that are making these important decisions. So again, I feel so fortunate. Princeton's been a wonderful place for my family to be based for these 40 years. great place to raise a family, and a great city government, and also great citizens and experts that are in this region and in this area. So thank you so very much. It's always been a team effort. As Irene knows, that's one of my mantras. Peace is a team effort. And I just want to thank you for this special recognition.
Thanks, Bob. And I just want to say, one more word. I told Bob he had to tell this story that he told last Wednesday, and he didn't tell it, so I'm going to tell it. When he interviewed for the job as executive director, they were ready to offer it to him. They said, Bob, do you think you could commit to stay here for at least 2 years? So he exceeded that 20 times over, right? We're glad you're here, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks so much. Applause to all of us. Team effort.
Thank you for your work.
Thanks, Bob.
Thanks so much. God bless all of you.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah. Moving on in the agenda. The next item is public comments for items not on the agenda, and just for people that wish to speak at this part of the meeting. When you come on, please give your name and your address. There's a 3-minute limit for everyone. And if multiple people are going to say the same thing, it is quite acceptable to say, I'm saying the same thing as the person in front of me instead of repeating everything. So anyway, let's start to see whose hands are up. And just for council, we also have 2 emails that came in that would be read under this section of the meeting, unless those people actually join the meeting live, which is always a possibility. But just saying that so between all of us, we don't forget to look for those. All right, Adam, can we bring in the first member of the public that had their hand up?
Yes, Mayor. We have Anita coming in first.
Okay.
Good evening. It's Anita Garoniak, 1 Harris Road. As many of you know, I live across from the Franklin Street lot. Excuse my phone. I'm calling, I wanted to speak tonight about the fuel tanks that are on the Franklin Street lot. I hope that all the council members are aware that there was a recent leakage from those tanks. Sorry.
You're a popular person, Anita.
Sorry, it's one of those evenings. There was a recent leakage from that tank that was noticed by neighbors only after the smell of the diesel fuel lasted for several days. And we didn't notice because of the rains before Hurricane Ida, which were light, but didn't wash it all away. So we have a situation where the 911 was called by a neighbor. The fire department came out, has removed the tank, put some sand down. The other tanks, which were unleaded, are still there. In fact, as of this morning, there was a truck there fueling. And this is sitting very close to the affordable housing and very close to the curb where high school kids and other kids are walking by, can be experimenting with smoking. It's a dangerous situation. I don't know, we're all appalled to find that we thought those tanks were empty and part of the kind of broken down cars and everything else that's stored at that end of the lot. And we're appalled to find that there's actually fuel in there and people are actually using it to fuel. There was a huge truck there that fueled from those tanks. So my questions are you, has the EPA been notified of the spillage because it seeped off of the lot and into the berm, and it was a very large spill? And when will those tanks be removed?
So I can address that. So my understanding is everyone who should have been notified has been notified and came out to the site. As to the removal of the tanks, they will be completely removed as soon as we finish the fueling station that's behind PFARs. I spoke with Dan Van Mater this week. We are looking at alternative sites, but we need tanks up and running while the tanks are being finished behind PFAR. So As soon as that is done, though, everything will be removed off that site, and hopefully sooner we can find another suitable site in the interim.
Yeah, it's just a shame that these were put next to the poorest people. It's really appalling. I just want to make that comment. I know that wasn't under this current council, but it's a really bad thing to have been done.
If I can just follow up on Bernie's comment, council did take action a few weeks ago to complete the work at the fueling station behind PFARS. So for you, Anita, or anybody else who's listening, who's sort of saying, well, you know, that fuel tank behind PFARS has been sitting there forever and nothing's happening. I just want to let you know that we are moving forward with completing the screen wall, and that should be done soon.
And can anybody tell me how long those tanks have been on the lot? I know they were there from before the pandemic.
I don't. They've been there quite a while, Anita. I don't remember exactly how long, but they've been there quite a while. And I know we are pushing, as Bernie said, to get them removed. And I for one would like us to relook at what's happening to the town fueling station that happens to be close to the first aid building, but we don't have to mention PFARS every time we mention the town fueling station, since they're totally separate. But anyway, we should really take a look and see whether we think we need to close down the fueling station when we do the work on that wall around there. Because if not, then we could move up the timetable to remove these temporary tanks. So Anita, we'll take another look at that this week. So thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you for responding.
Yeah. Okay. Adam, can we bring in the next person?
Yes, we have Lisa.
Okay. Lisa, if you could unmute your, oh, there you go.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. This is Lisa Seriasol. I'm speaking to you tonight as the chair of the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee. Some of you are quite familiar with this situation, and others of you I'm not so sure. But there was a death on August 25th on Rosedale Road at the intersection of General Johnson Drive, which also is the entrance to Johnson Park School. On 2 days out of the school year, there is a police officer that assists with the crossing of children who are looking for the opportunity to walk and bike to school safely. However, apart from those 2 days of the school year, there is no crossing guard. This is a dangerous intersection. It was evaluated in the bike mobility plan as LTS 4. It's a county road. Outside of the school zone area, it's 40 or 45 miles per hour. And even though it is the subject of a grant that is to address the safety of this intersection, the improvements will not be in place before 2023 or 2024. We are asking again for a crossing guard or a police presence to build confidence in the safety of the families who want to walk and bike to school, not only to Johnson Park, but to the middle school and the high school. Because many of the children who live in that area of town use that crossing to get to the Johnson Trolley Trail, which was recently repaved, and then connects to the Mountain Avenue Trail, which then connects to the Community Park South Trail, which brings you to Geo, and then to the middle school and the high school. So I cannot stress enough the importance of the safety of that intersection. And I ask you to reevaluate your commitments on crossing guards, to place a crossing guard at that intersection. Thank you.
Thank you, Lisa. Do we have any other, oh, there we go. Another hand I think just came up.
Yes, bringing in Tinica.
Tinica, can you, there you go.
Okay. Hi, good evening. My name is Tinica. I would like to, if I may, I would like to start by reading.
Tinica, yes. I'm sorry. Can you just say your full name and your address, please?
I can do that, but I would like to start by reading a letter that that the Ped and Bike Committee received today from a resident. So could I mention her name and address first?
Sure.
And then I will have my own comments.
Okay.
So this is a letter that was sent to us today by Gina Colata of 108 Hun Road. I am writing to support the efforts to get us a crossing guard during school hours, or even better, get a traffic light ASAP, because runners and walkers and cyclists also cross that road. The dangerous intersection has been a real issue for years. I started urging that something be done when the mayor was Liz Lambert. I even visited her in her office. She insisted they couldn't find anyone to accept a crossing guard job, even though it paid $27.50 per hour. I tried again last year with Mark Frieda to no avail. How sad that it took a death to wake people up. Thank you. So that concludes Gina's letter. And so my name is Tinica Teo, 79 Dempsey Avenue. I'm a member of the Pedestrian Bicycle Advisory Committee. And I would also like to ask you to please put this on the front burner. The tragic death was not an accident. Traffic deaths are never an accident. They are a result. They are a result of decisions made by the people who are in charge. And I have to say, the people who have been in charge have not put the safety of our children and our neighbors at the first priority. And they really should, because our lives are worth more than the 3 seconds that drivers could save by slowing down at that place. And it's worth more than, the 40 seconds they would have to stand still in front of a traffic light or to go around a roundabout. And so I call on this council to be different from all the councils that have come before you and really put our lives and our safety first. Thank you.
Thank you, Tinica. Just to make sure the full council and anyone in the public that's listening to the meeting is aware that this is not a matter that's being ignored by the town in any way, shape, or means. Our engineering staff, our police department have been in contact with the county. Rosedale Road is a county road. There are a number of temporary measures being investigated and trying to be implemented as quickly as possible, in addition to the permanent changes that Lisa mentioned, which will not happen for a while. So we're hoping the temporary measures can happen much sooner. So we're addressing things like the tree canopy. We're looking at I think message boards were put up, making sure the speed box, which flashes how fast you're going, is on. David had an idea that we should make sure that's on all the time. It's interesting, those speed boxes are actually on all the time, even when they're not flashing your speed. They're actually collecting data when they appear to be off. But anyway, just so people know that. There was also a concern that one of the pedestrian crossing signs may be blocking the flashing beacons, and so that was going to be investigated. And we are talking to, again, as I said, the county about trying to make improvements there. I think David again made a very good observation that we have to not look just at the intersection, but a fair stretch leading to it and after it. because people might slow down a little bit for some of the changes. We're hoping that it'll be made in the near future, but then they speed up afterwards. So we just need to make sure we're engaging the county on looking at an overall set of plans that we can do to address this. So I don't want people to think that we're not doing anything. So sorry that we're not moving as fast as everyone would wish, but we are trying to react. So having said that, Eve, I think you were first.
I'm going to defer to Deanna on this, but my recollection, sorry, Deanna, from the last traffic safety committee is that we have actually, I think, requested a signal there and been turned down. Is that accurate, or maybe you can correct me?
Investigating it. As Lisa and Tanika had noted, we do have a federal Safe Routes to School grant for improvements.
I'm sorry, Deanna?
Johnson. Yes.
I'm having is anyone else having a hard time hearing Deanna?
It's a little tinny.
Yeah, sorry. Can you hear me better?
Better. A whole lot better.
I had my microphone up in the air. Sorry about that. As was noted, we do have a federal Safe Routes to School grant for improving the walking and biking infrastructure to General Johnson Drive on Rosedale Road. And so we have been working, I think we applied for the grant back in 2018. We've been working on that. We have a consultant that has completed a traffic study, and we have been reviewing the results with the county and with the State Department of Transportation, who oversees the grant program. We're looking at the speed limit. We're looking at different factors that would come into play when you look at warrants for a traffic signal. And so right now, I don't have anything definitive to say whether it could be there or it can't be there. But that is part of what we are looking at. And as the mayor mentioned, in the interim, as soon as we get the sidewalks repaired at the bridge that were damaged during Tropical Storm Ida, the county will be coming in and repaving in the intersection. And as part of that work, they're going to do some traffic calming by narrowing the lanes through pavement striping. Also looking at upgrading the little turn island at that location as well. Those are all interim steps that will be in place until we can finalize the design and construct improvements probably in about 2023.
Thank you, Deanna. David?
And I just want to give Bernie some credit in one of our planning meetings to talk about solutions here. He actually raised the question, well, what if we don't get the warrants for the traffic signal? Is there any kind of appeal process or any other route to get a traffic signal? And so that's something that we're also looking at, because frankly, not only for the pedestrian crossing safety here and bicyclists, but also just for motorists who are trying to get in and out of Johnson Park at school drop-off and pickup times. It's a nightmare without a traffic signal there. So I think there are a lot of good reasons to do it. And I think that, we want to keep the pressure on in any way that we can, whether or not the warrants say that we automatically qualify for a traffic signal there, to see if there are ways to get one anyway.
Thank you. Dwayne and then Mia.
Just a quick question. My recollection of the fatal accident that happened was that it happened, it was on August 25th. So it was during the summer. School was not in session yet, and it happened early in the morning. I'm just wondering, just judging from the comments, from the couple comments that were made, talking about having an officer at a crosswalk. From what I've read, apparently the pedestrian did activate the crossing lights, etc. I'm not sure if the driver was ever charged. I don't know. When we talk about things like solutions, it almost seems like I don't know if those who are commenting is saying that we should have just someone there during the summers when school's out of session, which in August 25th if they were. I'm not sure if Johnson Park has some summer program that was continuing to that time. But it just seems to me that when we talk about solutions, you know, I would agree that it's always great to have some officer or some crossing guard available when school is actually in session and folks are there. In this case, it doesn't seem like, from my perspective, that would have prevented this tragedy, only because it was the summertime, unless there's something else going on that I don't know about. So I just wanted to point that out, that the comments seem as if previous councils or current council members who were in previous councils did not react to what is a danger. But the reality is, looking at the facts, was that this happened during the late summer, and in that part of the summer, usually a lot of activities, or even if there were summer activities, are probably wrapped up already. So I just wanted to point that out, that I'm not convinced that that what is being suggested as a solution would have addressed this particular issue. And if, you know, if we're trying to find real solutions, let's and with all due respect to those who really care and are commenting, if we're going to try to find solutions, let's find real solutions that would have possibly prevented such a tragedy.
Thank you, Julian. Mia was next, and then David.
You know, there really is only one solution here. It's the traffic light, and we have been trying to get that for a very long time. And you know, it is out of our reach because of it being a county road. And I'm wondering if either Deanna or Mark can recommend who residents of Princeton who are concerned legitimately about the safety of people in that area, who at the county should they reach out to?
Right. So we're going to make another effort to talk to the county directly, to the county, the head of the county's Department of Transportation, and to the county executive. So I think we should let us try that first. And then if that doesn't work, we can ask for the public to help. But I think there's still some glimmer of hope that we could make something happen. So I'd like to have another day or two to try to make that happen.
Is there any reason to believe that we'd be any more successful than in the past, however many years it's been? I
think there's some.
Good. Okay.
One thing being a pedestrian fatality.
A fatality gets people's attention. And, you know, we've been warning about this for years, and now it's happened, and now maybe we will be listened to.
Yeah.
I hope so.
Good. David, why don't you?
Yeah, I just wanted to commend Dwayne for his comment. And I think that, you know, I was out there with Lisa and Sergeant Murray last, I guess it was Thursday morning, to see what the situation was like. And the fact is that the congestion when school is, you know, when the families are arriving, is so great that it's extremely safe for pedestrians. You know, the cars are not moving. So it's pretty easy to cross the street. It's really at other times of the day and other times of the year that the hazard is the greatest. And Lisa will point out, for instance, that the high school and middle school students who want to bike along this route, they may all go to school in the same brief window, but they come home from school over an hours long stretch if they have after school programs that they're participating in and so forth. And so the crossing guard doesn't seem to be the answer for those situations. And it's also, those times are when rush hour traffic is not there. So the cars are traveling much faster. So we need to find engineering solutions and or enforcement solutions that are going to solve the most dangerous times, which are not necessarily school opening.
Yep. Okay, thank you. Okay, let's, Adam, I think Kate Warren is the next person with their hand up.
Yes, bringing her in now.
Kate, if you could just state your name and address and then.
Sure, Kate Warren, 17 Jefferson Road. First, I'd like to add my sustained applause and congratulate Reverend Moore on his recognition. Secondly, the reason I want to chat with you tonight has to do with affordable housing, but I would just like to add some comments to your last conversation. Many years ago, my late husband was involved in a near-death accident at that site. He was driving, however, and the mitigating circumstances there was the incline of the decline of the hill coming down as he was trying to go up and being blinded by lights coming the other way. And when I read about this terrible accident, I thought, my heart went out to the driver, because I was thinking that time in the morning, one could be really blinded by the sun at this time of year. So it doesn't make it any easier to accept a death at that, but there could be mitigating, maybe a redesign even of the road, which is, who knows, but just wanted to add that. So I'm really here to chat with you about some affordable housing issues. The Affordable Housing Board has been researching obstacles to affordable housing opportunities here in Princeton, as Dwayne has mentioned. And we've identified several obstacles and continue to work toward identifying and mitigating those within the municipality's purview. I'm here this evening to ask you to consider and adopt a draft resolution crafted by the board to remove the requirement of supplying a Social Security number from the municipal preliminary universal application for affordable housing units here in town. It's important to note that it might be necessary at some other point in the process that household members will be required to supply a Social Security number. And this requirement is often dictated by funding sources and not within the municipal purview to remove. So with that, I'd like to read the resolution. It's a little long, and I'm happy to supply it to the clerk for your consideration. Whereas the Princeton Preliminary Universal Affordable Housing Rental Application was created to facilitate the process for eligible households in applying for rental affordable units in the various Princeton affordable housing properties. And whereas applicants for the rental of affordable housing units within the municipality must complete the preliminary universal affordable housing rental application form. And whereas the Housing Board has been researching whether the Princeton Affordable Housing Program's current practices create unintended barriers and obstacles to fair and equal access to all eligible applicants. And whereas the Princeton Affordable Housing Board does not want to discourage non-citizen eligibility for affordable rental housing within the community. And whereas said board believes that requiring affordable rental applicants to include a Social Security number on the Princeton Preliminary Universal Affordable Housing Rental application may discourage non-citizens from applying for eligibility to rent affordable housing. And whereas the current Princeton Preliminary Universal Affordable Housing Rental application requires that all members of the household applying for affordable housing provide a Social Security number. And whereas the Princeton Preliminary Universal Affordable Housing Rental application is only intended as a preliminary collection of data to determine an applicant's prima facie eligibility based on the size of the household and income level. And whereas the inclusion of a Social Security number on this application neither precludes nor guarantees an eligible household being offered an affordable rental unit. And whereas members of immigrant households may lack a Social Security number for a number of reasons, including but not limited to recent arrival in the United States, young or old age, having no legal need for obtaining a Social Security number, as well as the complex legal immigration process to obtain permanent residency. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Princeton Affordable Housing Board recommends to Mayor and Council that the Princeton Preliminary Universal Housing Rental application for rental units be revised to remove from said form the requirement to provide a Social Security number for either the applicant or any member of the applicant's household intended to occupy the affordable rental unit. Additionally, you may all recall that in June, Governor Murphy signed the Fair Chance in Housing Act, Senate 250, that eliminates criminal conviction questions on rental applications. Landlords will no longer be allowed to run a criminal background check until after they have conditionally approved a potential renter. This eliminates the automatic denial of formerly incarcerated applicants. Landlords can ask an applicant if they are registered for life on the sex offender registry, or whether they've been convicted of manufacturing meth in federal housing, but otherwise cannot run a background check until after they've made a conditional offer. Convictions for crimes like murder or aggravated sexual assault can be grounds for denial. The law, however, says that landlords can withdraw their approvals for renters who were convicted of crimes only within a limited time frame and must provide a written explanation and offer a chance for appeal. The board has been informed by its attorney that although the law takes effect in January 2022, the language can be removed from the municipal preliminary universal application immediately. Should you adopt this resolution, Maureen will edit the universal preliminary application to remove the requirement for a social security number and to remove the requirement of a criminal background check at this preliminary stage. And just one other obstacle that we've been researching is credit worthiness. And just to bring you up to speed, there is a bill sponsored by Senator Turner that was introduced again in November of 2020, establishing guidelines for determining credit worthiness of applicants seeking to rent affordable housing units. So if you'd like to read that, it's S3141. I recommend that you read that, and maybe the board will come before you asking you to support that legislation in the form of resolution. Thank you for your time.
Kate, thank you. You make sure that you'll get that in writing over to the clerk's office so we can have it on one of our agenda setting meetings to get it on a council agenda then.
Certainly will do that first thing tomorrow. Thank you all.
Thank you, Kate.
Thank you.
Okay. Adam, can you bring in Dozer Hammond next?
Yes.
Dozer, if you could state your name and address and go for it.
Dozer Hammond, 87 Lee Avenue. Just a comment. Number one, I support what Kate Warren did. I'm the vice chair of the Affordable Housing Board, but please look that over. We're trying to make Princeton a more inclusive place to allow as many different people to be eligible for affordable housing as possible, following the law, but still making it as open as possible. But I just wanted to comment briefly on the whole question of Rosedale Road. And that is that I think the traffic signal would be the best solution probably, but another solution that you should think about, which was mentioned, is reducing the speed limit to 35 or even 30 miles per hour. It is a school zone. And then it could go to 25 when you're there. But if you have people traveling slowly, and it should start, right after Province Line Road coming into town and then going all the way into town, you should have a 35 or even 30 mile per hour speed limit. That's the best way to do it because people obviously often go 5 or 10 miles over the speed limit, but if it's 40 miles per hour, it's going to be 50. And if it's 30 or 35, it's only going to be, 40 or 45 at the most, and hopefully less. Also, obviously, you could have, I know we have limited police resources in certain ways, but maybe have, the police do some enforcement on it where, they let people know they're there and do it a little bit more rigorously than before. But I think a reduced speed limit would solve at least some of the problems, and in fact would even help even beyond the light, because if you have a light when it's 40 or 40 miles per hour, which I think it is now, people will be traveling at 40 until they're forced to slow down by the light. If there's no light turning red, they're going to keep going. So I think a reduced speed limit would really help. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, I know this is for items not on the agenda. If I can just make a quick comment based on what Dozer just said. I wonder, I'm just sort of wondering out loud. I know that whenever you have traffic fatalities, the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office has to investigate it. I'm wondering sort of out loud if we can get access to whatever that, I know the person who's the driver, I don't know if the person was ever charged or not. However, I'm wondering out loud whether or not we can get access to whatever data the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office comes up with. Kate made the comment about what happened with her late husband as far as visibility at certain times of the day and where the sun is, et cetera. So as part of us trying to figure out a solution to what I guess we can all agree to is a road that's a little more dangerous than the norm, maybe we can use whatever data we get from that to help in crafting a solution to prevent tragedies like these in the future.
Yeah, I think as soon as the investigation is complete, our own police department can provide us with that information and would be willing to. We had a discussion about this with our police department just last week. The investigation wasn't complete at that time, so they don't want to issue any information on what the cause may or may not have been until the investigation is complete. So I think we'll be able to have that information in the somewhat near future. I can't give an exact date, but yes, to your short answer to your question, yes, we can get the information.
And I was just going to add that we also work closely with the police department on matters like this. They will get us the information and we'll take a look at it from an engineering perspective to see what modifications, if any, are possible.
And just as an addition to what I just said, and the Princeton Police Department, in addition to the Mercer County Prosecutor's Office.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, Eve, sorry, go ahead.
I just wanted to respond to Dozer's comment, just to say, as with the traffic signal, changing the speed limit is not under our control. And then for somebody who actually does know their directions, was the sun, does anyone know, was the sun in the driver's? I don't recall that would be the case. David,
the car was eastbound and it was 8 o'clock in the morning. So it could have been a factor.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Okay, we have one more hand up. Usually we don't let people go twice, but seeing there's only one hand up. Lisa, Adam, could you bring Lisa in a second time?
Much, Mayor and Councilman. I just wanted to thank you for all of the energy that you're putting towards this. We know that there are solutions. We know that part of it is out of our hands because it's a county road, but we also know that there are many families identified by the school of Johnson Park in particular that have wanted to walk and bike to school, roughly 50 children from that neighborhood that are feeling uneasy about doing so. I received another email similar to the one that Tinica read to you. This was from another parent who lives in the Hun neighborhood.
Lisa, you're fading out.
Sorry, she lives in the family lives in the Hun neighborhood, and they told me that their child, who is now a 4th grader, when she was a 3rd grader, was almost hit crossing that crosswalk. And she's asking again for help. She's apparently approached Sergeant Murray for a crossing guard. I believe she's also approached other officials. And we're just echoing a few of the many voices that we have heard for a crossing guard. And I cannot stress enough that while there are solutions on the table for the medium term and the long term, and we recognize that the county is very busy, our own DPW is very busy, there is an intermediate and short-term solution, which is, apart from the flashing signals, to put a crossing guard there so that the traffic does know that this is a useful area for children to get to school. And I can't stress it enough. I hope that somehow, some way, someone will find a way to put a crossing guard at this intersection before someone else gets hurt.
Thank you, Lisa. Okay, so we also have 2 emails that came in on this topic. So let me read those. The first one is from Amanda Arshan to members of Town Council and Engineering Department. The crosswalk on Rosedale Road and General Johnson Road is in need of additional safety features. The crosswalk is currently very dangerous. It lies at the bottom of a valley where cars seem to travel well above the posted speed limit. It is at a 4-way intersection without a traffic signal and is often congested due to events at Johnson Park School or Greenway Meadows Park sports fields. Drivers leaving either of these places face a difficult merge onto Rosedale Road and can easily overlook pedestrians and bicyclists. In my many years riding bikes with my kids to school at Johnson Park Elementary School, I have seen and been a part of numerous close calls between cyclists, pedestrians, and cars. For example, while my children and I were crossing Rosedale Road on the crosswalk, a car on Rosedale Road accelerated aggressively around another car, making a left onto General Johnson Road. Luckily, the car slammed on their brakes, but my children and I were in the middle of the crosswalk and terrified. This is only one of many alarming incidents that should be mediated, with the addition of a crossing guard, a police officer, or a traffic signal. The crosswalk is a vital part of Princeton's existing bike path and hiking trail networks. It serves to connect Greenway Meadows Park, the Hunt School community, and surrounding neighborhoods, including Russell Estates to Johnson Park School, the Fairway Drive and Edel Farm neighborhoods, Community Park, Mountain Lakes Preserve, Fairview Fields, and the Lawrence Hopewell Trail. This crosswalk is not only used by school children, but by all of our community members to connect to Princeton's many trails. We urge you to place this crossing at a higher priority for safety so that our children and fellow community members can cross safely by biking or walking. Thank you for your consideration. And then we had one more email, just a sec, let me get to that. Lauren Holm, 176 Edgerstone. The flashing pedestrian light installed on Rosedale Avenue at the crossing from Greenway Meadows to Johnson Park Elementary School is a first step in the right direction. But in light of recent events at this crossing, both the tragic death of a man crossing using the flashing lights and the deterioration of the road caused by the recent storm, it is clear that this is not enough to protect the safety of our children and our community at large. This intersection baffles every Princeton resident I have ever spoken to and seems to directly contradict our explicitly stated values around safety, exercise, and environmentally conscious modes of transportation. The contradiction is apparent at the school's annual bike or walk to school day. On that one day of the year, a police officer mans the crossing at Rosedale Avenue and stops traffic for students. Without the officer's presence, our children would be unable to cross the street safely. But this is the only day a crossing guard attends this crossing. So while the explicit message of the day is that walking and biking to school is a better option, we know exercising before school helps students focus and learn. We know biking to school is a zero emission option. The implicit message of the day is that doing so is unsafe except on this one day of the week. Why are we waiting until one of our children is hit by a car to take action? Last year, I walked my son, a current fourth grader at Johnson Park, to school every day and negotiated this intersection myself. I can tell you firsthand that driver speeds are well above 25 miles per hour, that cars ignore the signs, lights, and laws about yielding to pedestrians and crosswalks. The situation at the start and end of the school day is further complicated by cars and buses exiting or entering the school's driveway. My son and I were almost struck last year because of this traffic chaos that occurs at this intersection at the times when our students are most likely to be navigating the crossing. It is my understanding that given a request for a crossing guard, it is the New Jersey government recommendation that school crossing guard supervisor who conducts an observational survey of the location during key times, and she had attached an article about this. I have made written requests for crossing guards multiple times. She attached 2 emails in relation to that. I have never seen a survey conducted. If a survey found that there was not a high enough volume of students using that crossing to warrant a crossing guard, it can only be because parents and children have been forced to find other, less beneficial ways of getting to school because of the inherent danger of this intersection. Can we not afford a crossing guard in Princeton? Can we not afford the most basic, widely employed, highly effective precautionary measure taken at many other schools, both locally and nationally? As I understand it, the cost would be $30 to $45 a day. In 2017, we were told that no one wanted the job. In 4 years, we have not been able to find one single person who will serve as crossing guard for our children. That's a question. Have we given up on ensuring our children's ability to reach school without putting themselves at risk? This is a question for our children's safety. Those were the 2 emails that we had received on this topic. Okay, I think that's all the topics. I know that we are working, and Bernie and Deanna can continue to work with the county. We can see what we can do temporarily soon, and obviously keep pushing the county for the permanent recommendations. And I know on the crossing guard issue, it's not a matter of not having tried to get crossing guards. 2 things on the crossing guards. One, the crossing guard can only help people cross. They can do nothing to direct traffic. They're not allowed by law to do so. So that's also a complication there. And we have a very hard time actually hiring crossing guards. Many times our police department strips all the officers off the road and some out of the building to try to cover all the crossings. So it's not for lack of desire or effort that we haven't been able to do that. So that's just a point of information, not saying whether it's right or wrong that there's not a crossing guard there. Anything else? If not, I move on with the meeting. Okay. All right, good. We have a work session scheduled for on flood and stormwater. Eve.
Thanks, Mayor. Due to the nature of my work at the Watershed Institute, which has been involved with the development of these guidelines, I'm going to recuse myself from this discussion. And if someone could let me know when the discussion is over, I will come back. So thank you very much.
Okay, thank you, Eve. We'll do that. All right, Jim, are you taking the lead?
Yes, good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. The subject of this evening's work session is an ordinance to amend our stormwater management ordinances to take into consideration that we would like to look at properties that are redeveloped in addition to properties that are undergoing development. I have a short PowerPoint presentation that identifies the reasons why we are seeking this ordinance and what the changes would be to the ordinance. So I will share my screen and hopefully everyone can see a PowerPoint presentation. Yes. So stormwater management for redevelopment, amending Chapter 10B of the Princeton Code. If I can advance. There we go. I'm going to run through some purposes of the proposed amendments, a description of the proposed amendments, and give you one quick example of how it would have been applied to a project that was recently approved by the planning board. 90% of the total 11,800 acres in Princeton are either developed or have been approved for development. Vacant lands that remain are, for the most part, either environmentally sensitive or difficult to develop. And most new construction in Princeton will consist of redevelopment of existing properties. We recently enacted Ordinance 2020-38 to regulate stormwater management for minor and major developments. This was in conjunction with new rules promulgated by the New Jersey Department of Environmental Protection. That ordinance specifies that the creation, replacement, or addition of impervious surfaces requires stormwater management measures. It, however, does not trigger stormwater management requirements for existing building structures or other impervious surfaces. It merely requires stormwater management to be looked upon as new impervious surfaces are created in a comparison with the existing surfaces that are there prior to development. Such redevelopment does contribute to uncontrolled or insufficiently controlled stormwater runoff when we are looking at existing building structures and other impervious surfaces that are being replaced. Our neighborhoods and streams experience significant flooding from stormwater runoff from development that predates the modern stormwater management rules. Uncontrolled stormwater runoff carries chemical and biological pollutants to Stony Brook and Harry's Brook and all of its tributaries throughout our town. Climate change has resulted in dramatic increases in the frequency and intensity of extreme storm events, as we've most recently experienced with both Henri and Ida, and last year with multiple storms that would have been classified greater than 100 years in a short period of time. The State of New Jersey Bureau of Climate Resilience Planning promotes the need to balance environmental quality, economic vitality, and community equity as the state continues to grow and develop. So the proposal that you are being asked to consider will include the definitions for redevelopment, replacement, and routine maintenance. They're being added to our ordinance. The definition for regulated impervious surface is going to be updated to include disturbed surfaces. I apologize, I have to take this for a second. All of these need to change the active speaker window. There we go. So we're going to update the regulated impervious surface to include disturbed impervious surface so that we can regulate anything that has been disturbed. We're also taking a look at, we would also like to change the definition for small project and large project, which is not part of Ordinance 2020-38. It is part of Ordinance 2020-39. However, it is included in the same chapter and section of the land use ordinance. We want to modify this to define small and large projects as developments that individually or collectively since May 21st, 2018, result in an increase in impervious surface or disturbance. I'll discuss that a little bit as soon as I get through all these amendments that we're asking for. To calculate the increase in stormwater runoff, the existing impervious surfaces disturbed during redevelopment will be considered as wooded areas instead of impervious surface areas. Right now, if a developer comes in and has a fully impervious lot and wants to redevelop it, that existing impervious surface is counted as impervious, and there's actually no change that needs to be made to stormwater runoff management requirements. A provision is being added to consider porous, pervious, or permeable technologies or materials, or green roofs as 75% impervious when calculating impervious surfaces for stormwater management in minor developments. Currently, that is not considered, it is considered 100% impervious. It's not considered permeable at all. So there's no credit given for providing porous, pervious, or permeable technologies when figuring out what the runoff will be. So we're giving a little bit of credit. It will incentivize green infrastructure to be constructed. So before I get into that quick example, I'm trying to be very quick because I know it's getting late. The couple of important things here are for the small and large projects, we've discovered recently that the new ordinance allows for an applicant to submit a project, say a small project, that is less than 400 square feet in new impervious surfaces. Get approved for that project, and then we'll come back in for another one that's less than 400 square feet. Under the current ordinance, there is no look back provision. So we have to look at those as two separate projects. And as two separate projects, they don't meet the threshold and no stormwater management is done. So there could be a number of projects that come into play as applications on the same property. And cumulatively, we're adding more and more impervious area without getting stormwater management in there.
Jim?
Yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, but David has his hand up. So David, do you have a question for?
I just want to give a little clarification to the other members of council because they may be wondering what the difference is between large and small projects and major and minor projects. So major and minor projects are any projects of a certain size that require site plan approval. And small and large projects do not require site plan approval. Typically, they're single family residences, 1 or 2 family residences. So I just wanted to help people understand what Jim was talking about when he made those references.
Thank you, David. And small and large projects do come to the Department of Engineering for review for stormwater management. A small project is one that has an increase in impervious area of more than 400 square feet, and a large project is more than 5,000 square feet. They would be going through the zoning permit process and not going to a zoning board of adjustment or a planning board for approval. So we capture those and require stormwater management measures on site if they meet those thresholds. I'll give an example of one that we recently received an application where the total amount of new impervious area on a single family project was 4,960 square feet. Making it a small project and not a large project. At the same time, another application came in for the same property from an architect to put in a 390 square foot deck in the backyard. Under the current ordinance, those are two separate projects. And yet, added together, they were more than 5,000 square feet and therefore would qualify as a large project. And in fact, under the current ordinance, we couldn't even look at the deck as requiring stormwater management. So this would close that loophole, and we could look back at all applications that have taken place since May 21st, 2018, which was when our stormwater management ordinance in its current form, not its current form, but its prior form before we just modified it, was enacted. We've checked with legal, and that seems reasonable and fair to them, so that passes the test of a legal review.
Jim, if I could jump in again, Michelle has her hand up so we can just see what her question is.
Yeah, sorry, I just, on this fifth point here, in terms of the existing impervious surfaces, if they're disturbed during redevelopment, they'd be considered as a wooded area. Are we saying that a tear down would be considered like back as if there were nothing there? Yeah, I see David's shaking his head yes. So this would count as far as a tear down.
Well, Michelle, let me clarify that. David is correct. If the project is being heard for approval as a site plan in front of one of the boards,
okay,
that would be under the minor and major development side of things. All other provisions in these amendments apply only to major and minor developments, not to small and large projects. The small and large project change is only going back collectively to May 21st, 2018.
But Jim, if you came in and tore down an existing house and built a new project that was over 5,000 square feet so that it was a large project, I thought large projects would have the higher, would have that requirement that you would calculate as a wooded area.
No, they don't. We haven't done that in this ordinance at this time.
Huh.
We have discussed it in our subcommittee discussions, but we have not applied this to the large projects at this time.
Okay.
They would have to calculate, well, there's a nuance there, David, but I don't know if we want to spend too much time in this.
Okay. So could I just make one suggestion? Because
yes.
I don't want to draw this out tonight either, but I think it would be beneficial over the next few days to send the definition of the major, minor, small, and large to all the council members. So
Absolutely.
As they're thinking about all this, they can keep it straight in their heads as to what is what. Because when you first say it, it's like, yeah, I got it. And then you start talking about something else. And then it's like, wait a minute, which was what? So that would be helpful if we can do that.
And it's actually in the draft ordinance, the definitions, okay. But I can share that with all the council members. I will show you one example as to how this is beneficial to the municipality. This is an existing, a development that was recently approved. You might all recognize this as Thanet Circle. This is the existing condition prior to the approval of the new development that's going to be 221 units. This picture here, it shows the existing parking area and existing office buildings. The blue lines represent the study areas. And this is drainage area number 1. Under the current ordinance, and as it was designed for the project, the existing surfaces are nearly 100% impervious. Being 100% impervious, the design looks at the existing condition today as 100% impervious and calculates the amount of runoff that will come off of that impervious surface. The next step in the design is looking at what is proposed. And when we overlay all the proposed on top of it, we look at how much of that is impervious and how much of it is not impervious. So the difference in the calculations is the amount of runoff that needs to be treated. In this particular project, I'm going to show you what took place in terms of pre versus post-development flows. For the three different design storms that are calculated, 2-year, 10-year, and 100-year design storms, a calculation is done based on the existing conditions. The existing conditions being, in the first chart, being all impervious, almost all impervious surfaces. So you'll see that they had 1.27 cubic feet per second in a 2-year storm that would run off this parking lot and the office buildings before development. After development, they've done some stormwater management, and the post-development flows were 0.63%. The reduction would be 50.4%. Similarly with the other storms, the pre-development existing conditions are as if what the existing condition is today of almost 100% impervious surfaces. So you see the 10-year storm in pre-development was 2.96, a 100-year storm was 0.672. If, however, we had taken, however, we had an ordinance that said you have to treat all of those existing impervious surfaces as if they were wooded, the pre-development flows would be less. You can see that the 2-year storm would only be 1 CFS, the 10-year storm would be 2.33 CFS, and the 100-year storm would be 5.28 CFS, cubic feet per second. Post-development stays the same calculations, but the reductions are different. So instead, they're only getting a 36.9% reduction in a 2-year storm, a 12.3% reduction in the 10-year storm, and they're actually increasing the amount of runoff in the 100-year storm. This ordinance would have required them to mitigate that additional runoff. So we would have gotten a bigger impact in terms of getting the reductions that are necessary. I know it sounds complicated, but the bottom line is what we're asking developers to do under this ordinance is consider that the existing impervious surfaces that they're disturbing in order to put in their new developments go back to a time when there was never anything there, that it was wooded, good soils with the hydrologic soil groups that they would have. And that's the presentation. I think I'll leave and stop sharing my screen so we can have a discussion. And Andrew Philippi is here to help me out. I just do want to give credit. We had a subcommittee of the Flood and Stormwater Committee that worked many months on this. I think as many months on this as we did on 2020-38 and 2020-39. Mr. Cohen.
And I just want to, some of you are aware that the history goes back way before even the revival of the Flood and Stormwater Committee. This is something that's been a priority for PEC, probably for 4 or 5 years to try and get this redevelopment ordinance in place. So it's really been a long time coming and very welcome. And I just want to make a little pitch from the sort of a standpoint of the conceptual basis for this, because those who think about development as it's happened, this feels like a big deal and a big change. And how can you ask so much of property owners to, go back and fix something that was done under old regulations or under no regulations at all? But if you think about it, if somebody were to tear down a building and to build a new building, would we say, oh, well, they shouldn't have to meet the current building codes because there was a building there before and so we should let them build to the old building codes or to no building codes if it's a really ancient building. I think that this, anybody who is in Princeton after Ida can appreciate how important it is for us to try and mitigate our stormwater flows as much as we can. And the first line of attack is always to keep the stormwater on the property where it falls, rather than flowing into our system, because you could spend $1 billion on stormwater infrastructure for the municipality, but, so that we wouldn't have flooding in our town. But the end result is that you push the problem downstream, and you get flooding in Manville or flooding in Bound Brook. And that's why they have the problems that they have. So from a social justice standpoint, we really need to try and deal with our own stormwater in Princeton, and as much as possible, right on the properties where it falls. And this is the only way to do it, because as Jim was saying at the beginning of his presentation, 90% of Princeton's already developed. So how are you going to get control of the stormwater on all those 90% of properties unless you put a regulation like this in place?
Michelle's next.
So just so I understand, so when we're looking at going back to new construction, so if something was constructed since 2018, would go back to the property owner and have a regulation where they'd have to install some type of stormwater management. Is that my understanding correct?
Let me just repeat though, Michelle, that is only for this 1 family and 2 family homes that come through zoning and through engineering. So that's the small projects, and the large projects that we are they don't go in front of the planning board or the zoning board. They come to us. And we have records on all of those properties, so we can go back and check. So if someone comes to us, for an example, I want to put in a new deck, 300 square feet. I can go back and say, but in 2019, you put in a pool and you didn't put in any stormwater management for that pool. So I can tell them that they need to put in stormwater management for both of those things at that point. That's what would change.
But we're not going back to the person who did the pool unless they do a new project as well. We're not going back just in looking at everything that was done since 2018.
I just wanted to clarify. And then going forward, and of course, I have to look at like the differentiation between the small, large projects and all. But could you just give us an example? Like if you're talking about a 5,000 square foot new build house, what would be the stormwater mitigation that they would be looking at, and what would be kind of the estimated cost that would be generated by it, just to kind of for the public to have an idea?
I don't think I can give you an estimated cost, but we have had a number of applications since the ordinance went into effect in March. The prior ordinance, I'll just give you an example. The prior ordinance used to require, and the go-to solution was to put in a dry well. And people in this, everyone was putting in dry wells, and they're digging holes in the ground, putting a large concrete chamber in the ground, filling the rest of the hole with stone, and 40% of that stone is considered available for storage of water. Mm-hmm. So imagine having the same volume above ground where you'll have 100% of the area available. It's 2.5 times smaller than putting something in the ground. It's much less expensive to do something above ground. So our new ordinance actually requires that they provide green infrastructure such as grass swales, small bioretention basins, or rain gardens. Mm-hmm. Mostly, we're trying to do it through appropriate landscape. So I couldn't tell you how much a rain garden costs, but I think it's a lot less than putting a dry well in the ground, excavating, filling it with stone, and putting in a big concrete chamber.
Okay, no, it's very helpful. And I mean, I hear about rain gardens and people are trying. What I'm thinking too is, I mean, just people may even be interested in doing that on their own. because of the situation with so many flooding. So it might be really helpful at some point in the very near future for us to have an education of what that would look like and how that could help. So, our colleague who has recused herself actually is very helpful in this area as well. But if maybe we can put, our heads together on the watershed and in our organization and how we can get the word out, because I know there's a lot of interest in doing that. So, thank you.
Jim is doing a lot of that with neighborhoods actually already, just going out, helping them figure out why they're having problems in their neighborhood and making recommendations for ways to help solve it, even if they're not coming in with a project.
Great. Yeah. Thank you.
Jim, if I could ask you a couple things. I know when I asked about those definitions for those 4 things, you said they're in the ordinance itself. If the draft ordinance has been shared with the council, I'm sorry I missed it. So if it's out there somewhere, that'd be great. If not, if we could make sure it gets out to everybody, that'd be helpful.
Andrew, we haven't shared that, have we? My apologies.
That's okay. That's okay.
So the small and large, and those definitions would have been in the original 2020-38, 2020-39. So our changes have not been shared, but that is available. But we will still share everything that we've got there.
But the mayor has asked, and we can easily email out at least the changes, the existing ordinances and what we're recommending to change.
Thank you. So I just have a couple more questions. The last slide, I'm trying to follow the logic on the last slide. So it seemed to me that for the development you showed, the current condition was a lot more runoff than if we considered it to be fully wooded. So I'm trying to understand the advantage to us to control water runoff if we consider the site that someone wants to develop as fully wooded versus as it is, because in this case, right, it actually, the runoff that we would use would be a lot less than what's currently there. So I don't know if that hurts us. But
okay. Let me see if I can explain that better. What the stormwater requirements are is that they have to meet a certain percentage reduction. And because a wooded property would not have as much runoff, the percentage reduction that they have to meet under the ordinance doesn't change. So I showed you the post-development flows in that chart that were the post-development flows that they achieved. But they only had, for example, one of them was only about 40% reduction. They're not allowed to get away with only 40% reduction. They have to get more than 50% reduction on that flow. So they would have to actually change their post-development flows to provide for the reduction that's required.
Okay, so the post-development flows in that slide are not the ones that they had to meet. They had to meet actually higher ones.
No, those were the actual post-development flows on that project. And they would have had to go back and redesign their system in order to meet the percent reductions that were required.
Okay.
Which would
point the confusion here. So we have our pre-development conditions and our post-development conditions. Currently, under current ordinance, the pre-development conditions are the existing conditions when they put in the application. What we're saying is that those pre-development conditions, instead of the existing 2021 conditions, that it's as if we were back before Princeton was developed at all and everything is wooded. And so what we're trying to do is say all of the stormwater that you're managing is not just what you're adding today or in your current application, but that plus the development in this area that you're working that has happened since Princeton was founded, effectively. Does that make things more clear? So when we say that it's a wooded lot, we're saying that it used to be a wooded lot, not that it is now a wooded lot.
Right. So I don't want to belabor this one, and I could talk to you guys offline about it. But if I look at that slide, it appears to me under the proposed ordinance, the percentage is less than what it was under the prior ordinance. So anyway, you can somehow enlighten me as to how I'm reading that wrong.
I'm going to make a suggestion to Jim offline as to how he can do a third table that will completely clear it up.
Okay.
And we'll also add in the regulations where the 2-year storm, you need to have a 50% reduction. 10-year storm, it's 25% reduction, and 100-year storm, it's 20% reduction. So we can show that as well.
Okay.
And if you remember, what I showed was that they actually were increasing the 100-year flow. So they would actually have to redesign their system so that they still got the percentage reduction required. Those percentages shown in the last column in that last table were below the requirements. Okay. They would have need to go back and change their post-development flows to meet the requirements.
Okay. All right. That helps. Let me just ask a rain garden question, because the only rain gardens that I'm familiar with recently dealt with a development. Yeah. And anyway, but those rain gardens had to be connected to the storm sewer system. So are we asking single family residents to connect a rain garden that we're going to ask them by this ordinance to put in their yard to somehow connect that to the stormwater system also? Because that to me seems to be where the real cost can start to occur.
Not necessarily. There are a number of different ways to do things. I'll give you an example of an application that we received where the engineer who was designing it, I think it was for a pool and a patio, came through and said, I can't do stormwater management with a grass line swale. I can't do it with a bioretention basin. I can't do it with a rain garden. I can't do it with this other green infrastructure. So I need to do it with a detention basin, an underground detention basin, which is what I consider a dry well. And I went back to the engineer and I said, no, you can do it with all of those different things. And the engineer came back and with the client's okay, the homeowner's okay, with a grass line swale that drained to a rain garden that then discharged to a grass filter strip into the woods in their backyard. It didn't have to get connected through a structural system at all. It's discharging whatever overflow discharges to the ground. When we're looking in the former borough, yes, in some cases, they've got to run a pipe as an overflow from their rain garden into our system. And we work with them very carefully to make sure that, that we're not making it too expensive for property owners. We do work very closely with the engineers and the pool companies and the deck companies and the architects. Our department spends an awful lot of time I had a meeting today with an engineer for a driveway. It's a 5,000 square foot driveway. We talked about how to reduce it so that he didn't have to go over 5,000 square feet. So we work with them to reduce impervious area as well and get the systems to work.
Thank you. I appreciate it, because obviously this is a big problem and it is something we need to do. I just want to make sure there's enough balance there, because we obviously have a lot of property owners that we're not in a position to spend a lot of money on this either. So anyway, everything's a balance. Other questions? David, I think, had his hand up first.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment on that. You know, even for these small residential projects that might be doing a 500 square foot addition, we're still talking about, $150,000 total cost of the project. And these rain gardens, I know Jim was a little reluctant to give cost, but I know that our subcommittee did some conversations, I think, whether it was with the watershed or somebody did a little bit of research on what the average cost is for a rain garden. It was $2,500. That'll go up. If it's a big rain garden, it'll, go down a little, but we're talking about something that's a very small percentage of the overall cost of the project. And it's just something that needs to happen.
Yep. Thanks, David. Other comments? I know we have a couple of people from the public that want to comment. Just want to see if there's any other council comment or staff comment first.
I will just add that, and I said that we work very closely with them. There are provisions within the ordinance already that allows us to waive some of the requirements if they can't be met. And even with the major and minor developments, there are variances that can be granted, not variances in a zoning sense, but variances to our stormwater management regulations if they can come in and show us why they can't meet water quality, water quantity, or recharge. And recharge is one of the biggest things here in Princeton because we have soils that will not infiltrate. But variances can be granted by the planning board or the zoning board for from our stormwater management regulations if sufficient justification is provided.
Thank you, Jim. Mia.
I would love to see some discussion of partnering with the Affordable Housing Board. I know that they provide, there's a fund in which they provide certain homeowners who are, you know, in need of basic repairs for health and safety in their home. But there's a fund that the town helps out with those repairs. And I know, David, you mentioned, you know, that you're sort of thinking this in the context of, you know, an addition or something in which the person has the financial means to do that. But I do think that there are homeowners, what I would really like to drill down and what I'm concerned about is just if there are aspects of this ordinance which would fall heavily on homeowners in Princeton who are really just managing to make ends meet and might somehow trigger a provision of this ordinance when they go to do a needed repair in their home, in which case, no? Okay.
No, I'm sorry, Mia. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but
that's okay.
But we're talking about, I mean, 400 square feet. And by the way, that's just the redefinition of small and large projects. That's got nothing to do with the major and minor developments. That is the focus of the redevelopment ordinance itself. But 400 square feet, you know, if you're putting in a 400 square foot deck, yeah, you need to do something about that stormwater runoff. But if you're putting in a 400 square foot deck, I think you probably have the means to pay for a small rain garden.
I will say, yeah, I love your idea, Mia, of making that fund available for people who have problems with flooding on their property, yes, to help them put in a rain garden, yeah, as a needed repair. I think, yes, that's a great idea.
Right.
Yeah,
that is it. Yeah.
I think that some of those homeowners are really quite vulnerable to the impacts of stormwater, and it would be great to see how the town can support them in doing what they need to do with stormwater mitigation.
Happy to talk to you about it, Mia, and figure out how we can do that.
Okay. Can I get to the public? Anybody else have anything that new to? Okay, Adam, I think Tinica has her hand up. Will you bring her in?
Yes, bring her over.
Hi, this is Tina Castillo, 79 Dempsey Avenue. I would like to thank the engineers for putting in this necessary work because it's been so painful and is set to become even more painful as we get more extreme precipitation around here. I have two questions. One is there a reason to stop at the 100-year rainfall? Because you have acknowledged that those aren't actually 100-year rainfalls anymore. So I'm wondering if it doesn't make sense to just be prepared for what's coming our way and go beyond the 100-year rainfall. And then my second question is a rather personal question. I've been looking at my driveway. The driveway is probably more than 400 square feet. And I would love to I have, right now I have no car. So it's just sitting there. And I'm thinking it would be great to like make it smaller or make it more pervious. So under the new rules, would it mean that, even if I took away half of it, it would be as if I had added half of it instead of what actually happened, which is that I took away half of it? I'm just confused. Can you make that clear?
Danica, no, you would not be required to provide any stormwater management whatsoever. And again, I suppose it's confusing because we're adding in this small change to the definition of small and large projects. Once again, the major thrust of these amendments is for major and minor developments that will be heard as site plans in front of the planning board or the zoning board of adjustment. Your example would mean that you're actually reducing the impervious area on your site. You do not have to require. We're not looking at. We're not treating it as if it's a major development. Major or minor development. It's just a small project. We're not even looking at it at engineering.
Well, I think this is such a great question, Danica, and I just want to modify it slightly or clarify it. So what if she took out her whole driveway and put in, which might be 900 square feet, and she put in new pervious pavement that was 450 square feet, half the size, but still over 400 square feet of disturbed impervious coverage. Jim, are you saying that would not be affected?
That is not, again, the redevelopment ordinance provisions don't apply to small and large projects. So that would not trigger any need for any stormwater management. She's not adding any net new impervious area. The ordinance is not changing in that way. The small and large project ordinance side of things isn't changing in that way. It's net new impervious. If you add impervious, she's not adding any impervious to her project.
Okay.
It is cool. So now I will go to my husband and talk to him about this.
Let's reduce your impervious surface, Danica.
It's government using common sense. I know it doesn't happen a lot, but we do try to do things the right way.
So I'm just going to make one more little comment about this because I think it's a little confusing for council because this one little change to the small and large projects where we're making changes cumulative since 2018, that's been mixed in with this work session that's really about major and minor projects. And I think what you're saying, Jim, is the redevelopment ordinance only affects major and minor projects that are going to the planning board and not single family, two family homes at all.
Correct.
But the only reason we're talking about them tonight is because of this cumulative measurement that we're trying to fix. There was something in the ordinances that we passed last year that needs to be just tweaked.
That's correct.
Okay.
Okay, we have another member of the public with their hand up. Adam, could you bring them in?
Yes, bringing over Mike.
Great, thank you very much. My name is Mike Dozer. I'm the Policy Director for the Watershed Institute. Given the late hour, I'm not going to talk a lot, but I do want to thank Councilman Cohen and Deanna and Jim and Andrew and the Princeton Flood and Stormwater Committee for all their work that they put into this. As David mentioned, this was something that started back in 2017 and 2018. Where we came to the council, talked about stormwater management and the need for redevelopment. So this is a very important issue, very timely, unfortunately, because of the recent storm events. Those things are not going to get any better. So trying to be equitable taking the opportunities where it's presented. So where you have a site that is being redeveloped, making it meet the current standards and not sort of ignoring what could be decades of progress in environmental protection because it was built in the 40s or 50s or 60s, really doesn't make sense anymore. And we really need to do that. All of Princeton is flooding, but also Princeton is contributing to the flooding downstream. And so this will start over time to start to chip away at that. And it's so important. And I do appreciate this opportunity to speak in favor of this. I, again, cannot thank enough the people who have been involved in getting us to this position. And we at the Watershed Institute will be, with Princeton trying to get this implemented, educating on it, and working forward with other communities to get them to follow suit. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Mike. Any other questions for Jim or Andrew?
No hands raised, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Jim, Andrew, were there any other points you were hoping to make or any answers to great questions we forgot to ask? Okay, are we good to move on? All right. Jim, Andrew, Deanna, thank you all very much for that presentation and putting up with all our questions, but that was very helpful. I think it was very useful. Thank you. Okay, let's move on to the resolutions. 21-291, resolution approving.
Excuse me, Mayor, I'm going to let Eve know that we are.
Thank you. Thank you, Leticia. We'll pause for a second and give her a minute or so, see if she can jump back on so she doesn't miss anything. Thank you. There we go.
Thank you, Leticia. I hope you had a robust and interesting conversation.
Actually, we finished the meeting an hour ago. We were just, hey, it was a very good discussion, Eve. So yes, it was. Thank you. All right, so we're moving to the resolutions. The first resolution, 21-291, resolution approving the request of the Housing Initiatives of Princeton Charitable Trust to extend the property lease and management agreement for an additional 2 years for 140 Griggs Drive. Is there a motion on that resolution? Leticia, thank you. Michelle's got the second. Any questions on the motion? I'm sorry, is that a question, Eve? Go ahead.
No, not a question, but I just want to take the opportunity to commend the work of Housing Initiatives of Princeton. They're such an incredible community partner in so many ways. We're just really lucky to have them. So just that shout out.
Yep, thank you. Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. 21-292, resolution approving the police department promotions for 2021. Leticia has the motion. Dwayne has the second. Any questions, comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Thank you. 21-293, resolution approving deer management services agreement with John Zampini, Suburban Deer Management Association for bow hunting on public lands during 2021-2022 fall permit and winter bow hunting seasons. Is there a motion on that? Eve has the motion. David has the second. Questions, comments? David.
I don't know if this is the right time to ask this question, but we always or typically hear from John Hart asking if he can process the meat. And I'm wondering if that's going to happen again this year. I don't see him in the attendees, but.
I can address that or Eve can. I don't want to step on toes, but I think the answer is probably yes. I believe that the intent is to get quotes from him and use him again this year. It worked very well last year.
Great.
What Trishka said.
Yeah.
And I do know, I mean, there's this resolution plus the next two, and I'm not trying to interrupt the flow, but just at some point, I know there had been some questions in general about the deer management program. So I'm available whenever you guys are ready.
And Mayor Jeff was going to present something.
Yeah, Mayor, I think this would be a good opportunity for Trishka and Jeff to do their dog and pony show about deer hunting, just to set the context for the 3 resolutions that are coming.
Okay.
So Jeff and I actually did talk ahead of the meeting and sort of figured it would make sense if I kicked it off by giving you guys the background. And, you know, first I just want to say I'm actually really glad that questions were brought up. I believe it was at our last or 2 agenda setting meetings ago. So it was a really good reminder for someone like me who's been involved with this program from day one, more or less, that you start to assume that people just know until the questions get raised, and then you realize, oh, wait a minute, no, actually, a lot of time has gone on. There's been a lot of change in elected officials. There's been a lot of changes at the staff level. And I can't assume that you guys have a lot of this information. And I think it's important that you have it when you're asked to vote on things. So, you know, frankly, I think this is just a really good opportunity to kind of go back and give you guys the background and the context of this program that I don't know if it's unique in the state of New Jersey. You're one of the very, very few towns that does deer management at the level at which you, meaning Princeton collectively, at the level at which it's done here. And it's something that's really, in my opinion, commendable. And at the last agenda setting meeting, when we discussed, you know, I think Eve was the one who had mentioned that, you know, I had talked to her and Jim Ferry, and I was really like, she was struck by how passionate I am about this. And it's true. I am actually very passionate about this program. Because I have been involved with it intimately since 2000. So in preparing for tonight, I just started going back through my old files to see what I could pull up. And while the program in its current form began in 2000, or in the 2000-2001 hunting season, basically, this actually goes back really to 1982. And under then Mayor Wynn Pike in Princeton Township, there had just been an increasing number of complaints from residents about damage to lawns and landscaping, big increases in Lyme disease, a lot of alarm being sounded by biologists at at Princeton University, at Rutgers, at other institutions about the damage that was being done to the woods and the biological diversity in the woods in Princeton, and then a really dramatic increase in motor vehicle accidents, or deer vehicle collisions, as we have been referring to them. And so all of this triggered the appointment of the first Animal Control Advisory Committee by Mayor Pike to study the issue and come up with recommendations. And that's really where it all began. There were a number of committees that were put together. They studied this, and then under the late Mayor Marchand in 2000, you know, she really actively lobbied the legislature to get legislation put in place that would enable what is today's deer management program in Princeton. And I'll explain what I mean by that. As you know, deer are a state-owned resource. They're here to create hunting opportunities. They were extinct in 1900 in New Jersey. They were introduced or reintroduced into the state in 1920 to create recreational hunting opportunities. Mm-hmm. In 1920, their predators were basically gone and remained gone except for the automobile. And this has allowed them to flourish. And the population has absolutely exploded within the state. And the only means available prior to the law I'm going to talk about, or prior to 2000, was just traditional hunting. But there are a lot of limitations that come along with traditional hunting, including a lot of, you know, limitations on when you can hunt, where you can hunt, what types of property owner permissions you need. And Princeton, being a very densely populated municipality, there really weren't very many areas, even in the township, that, I mean, there are areas that are suitable for hunting, but not enough to start to make an impact on the ever-growing size of the deer herd. So what pre-2000 advisory committees had come up with was the need to really do a very controlled hunt or a controlled cull using methods that might not actually be permitted under traditional hunting laws, including, for example, using rifles that are equipped with suppressors, which is an aspect of the program, and it is actually not nearly as scary as it sounds. So what Mayor Marchand and a number of others did was lobby the legislature to pass what is what you'll see in these resolutions referred to PL 2000 C46. And frankly, I can never remember where it's codified, but it basically authorizes the Division of Fish and Wildlife and the Fish and Game Council, where a municipality is able to demonstrate that it is experiencing a lot of damage due to deer and, you know, any number of factors, that municipality can be allowed to implement a community-based deer management plan using alternate deer management methods, meaning alternate to traditional hunting methods. And that is what you have here. And that legislation was key to starting Princeton's program in 2000. Now, where it becomes personal for me is in 2000, I was a brand new municipal attorney. I had just been hired at Mason, Griffin, and Pearson. And Ed Schmier, at the time the Princeton Township attorney, dropped this on my desk and said, go forth and figure this out and put the whole thing together. And I looked at it and thought, wait, this is a deer call? Absolutely not. I'm all about animal rights. I'm an animal lover. What do you mean go forward and put this program together? And what I learned in doing it is that the whole goal of this program and the whole ethos behind White Buffalo and similar companies is the humane ways and efficient and effective ways of addressing a real problem. And I say humane, I can't tell you the number of times I've seen maimed deer, you know, after they've been hit by a car, and you see an animal that is suffering in pain, you know, scared out of its mind because its legs are broken and it can't get up. And that animal will eventually die. Or there's what Princeton does, which is a very safe and a very effective, quick cull that really brings the population down, that starts to really reduce the number of deer vehicle collisions, and that frankly addresses a problem, but addresses it in a way that where the deer don't suffer. And the reason I can say that so categorically is that in that first year, in 2000 into 2001, the lawsuits were coming in. I knew that I was going to have to be in court defending this program. So I had two jobs. One was to make sure that we were actually meeting all the legal requirements and doing things correctly, but then I was also going to have to defend it in court. And quite frankly, I didn't think that I could stand up with a straight face and defend something if I hadn't seen it for myself. So I actually, in that first winter, I went out with White Buffalo a few times just to see how it worked. And it was amazing how professionally this was handled, how effectively, but how humanely. And it's because the company was founded by a wildlife biologist. It was made up of scientists who saw a need and really wanted to do wildlife management the right way. And so that was the program at its inception. Now, there have always been 4 articulated goals to this program, and it's relevant to the action that is on the agenda for tonight. First and foremost is reducing the number of deer vehicle collisions. And secondly, addressing the damage that was being done to the ecological environment in Princeton. So helping to restore the health of the woods, bringing songbirds back, bringing, you know, small animals back, eliminate, you know, getting some diversity back into the woods, having an actual understory that could grow, which you don't see out where I live in Hunterdon County. The woods are dying. There will be no trees left in this county in another 10 years because nothing is coming up behind it, unlike in Princeton. Third goal was dealing with landscaping damage. And then fourth, and this is a very difficult one to quantify, was really just, you know, the tie-in between the deer and increases in tick-borne diseases at that time, Lyme, but now there are a whole bunch of others that have come along as well. And so from, basically since 2000, that has been the goal. And every year, Princeton has applied to the state for a community-based deer management plan that covers the entire township. It's obviously never included the borough because they're just not in the borough. Every year it's been approved, but every year it's always sort of dicey whether it will be approved or not, although I think the state has become more accepting of the fact that Princeton doesn't rely strictly on traditional hunting. But it's always to address those 4 goals, and there are really 3 very important components to the program. One, as I mentioned, is white buffalo, the alternative deer management methods. And specifically what that involves is going out at night, hunting over bait from fixed sites, and then using drop nets as well. But they hunt at night, so after hours on private properties and on public properties. And they use rifles equipped with suppressors. The reason for the suppressors is it doesn't startle the deer. And so you can just frankly take more out at a time very, very quickly and without scaring them and without startling them. That's one component. Traditional hunting is an important component. And this is why you have the John Zampini bow hunting contract on the agenda for tonight. John actually also works with white buffalo, but he's a New Jersey resident. He's a hunter, but he is committed to doing something about the overabundance of deer in Princeton and throughout the state. He works elsewhere in the state as well. And again, it's for him and his guys, it's all about safely removing deer, as many as you can. It's not trophy hunting. It's not letting 5 does go by while they wait for the buck with the large rack. And then the third piece is in 2002, I believe, or 2001, I can't recall now, Princeton banned deer feeding in Princeton and passed an ordinance that was litigated that, we prevailed on that one. And that is also really, really, really a critical part of the whole deer management effort within the municipality. And, what I can say, Jeff, he's put together the numbers that he's going to share with you guys. We've never quite gotten to the goal. So the goal that was developed even prior to 2000 and has always been the stated goal is to get to about 20 to 30, what we call overwintering deer per square mile. It's an average. Overwintering means pre-fawning. And because that's sort of considered, from a biological carrying capacity, ideally it should be even lower than that. From a sort of cultural tolerance in terms of when do you get to where, you don't want to have any deer vehicle collisions, but they're at a tolerable level. You don't want to have any damage to the woods, but what's happening, the woods are able to regenerate, it's tolerable. That's sort of more of the cultural carrying capacity, and that kind of lands around 20 to 30 deer per square mile based on prior studies that were done by previous iterations of the Animal Control Advisory Committee. And then unfortunately, the other component that's gone by the wayside, and it's such a shame because it was effective. Princeton for 7 years also had an immunocontraception study project going on, and it was effective. Unfortunately, due to state regulations, it really can't be implemented and it had to be abandoned, which is a real shame because that was a non-lethal way of managing the deer, but we couldn't continue with it for a bunch of reasons that I won't, necessarily go into tonight. As I said, I can't believe it's been 20 years now. And it really is a remarkable program. Princeton's never quite gotten to its 30 deer per square mile average, but it's come close, and the statistics show it, and they show, both the statistics, and there's a lot of anecdotal information that shows that the goals are being achieved, in particular in terms of the deer vehicle collisions and the health of the woods. And And the last thing that I'll leave you with, so again, in preparing for this and going back through my files, every year since 2001, White Buffalo has provided a year-end report that contains just an enormous amount of data and statistics in terms of the number of deer, which are does, which are bucks. Of the does, were they pregnant with twins, pregnant with triplets? It is such a mass now of scientific information. And one of the things I was saying to Jeff was it would actually be great, I think, if we could get that on Princeton's website. I mean, if we could have a repository for all of the reports that the Animal Control Advisory Committees put together over the years, all of the reports that have been submitted by White Buffalo, by John Zampini, there's just so much information that has been developed over the past 2 decades that I think would be helpful not only to elected officials who are being asked to act on this, but I think to the public, possibly even to biologists, biology students, people like that who might find it quite useful. So I'll shut up. I'll let Jeff give you some numbers because I'm a yakking person, not a number person.
Thanks, Trishka. Thanks, Trishka. Thanks you for the intro. Dawn, I'm going to try to just share my screen really quick to show the, let me know when you can see it.
Yeah, it's up.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor. All right, so thanks, Trishka. As Trishka provided a lot of the overview, I was going to go into the numbers a little bit. Our animal control officer, Jim Ferry, tracks and coordinates the statistics behind the deer call on the municipal side and maintains a very good record of the impact of the program in the community, along with the data and statistics. He was unable to be here tonight due to a previous family engagement, so I'm going to do the best Jim I can do. So hopefully I can get through this. In terms of the operations side from the ACO perspective, if there are questions, I'm happy to provide that. But Jim does an instrumental job with White Buffalo and John Zampini to make this program work. So the chart before everybody demonstrates the deer harvested by recreational hunters, which is the bow hunting program, deer harvested by White Buffalo, which is the sharpshooting portion, which Trishka mentioned a lot. Deceased deer found on roadway, which can be assumed are from motor vehicles, and then documented deer car collisions, which is what we're trying to obviously reduce through all of this. To adjust for the large scale of this particular graph with everything in one, it's better viewed on the next slide, which demonstrates the deer-related motor vehicle accidents kind of before and after the White Buffalo implementation in 2001, which you can notice with the break in the line. And since the inception of the program, the average deer-related motor vehicle accidents have been reduced from an average of 88 per year to about 38 per year, which you can see the instant decline once the program went into place. Now, a lot of that also has to do with the coordination of the program through the animal control officer, the bow hunting coordination, as well. So it's not as simple as just White Buffalo. It's definitely a program success. So in terms of the deer that are harvested, there's been some questions to us from the community. And as Councilman Cohen mentioned, recently there was a shift to a more local butcher. And what happens is when the deer are harvested by White Buffalo, the animal control officer will transport each deer over to a local butcher that participates in a program called Hunters Helping the Hungry. This is a coordinated venison donation program originally established by New Jersey State Senate and General Assembly, which occurred in 2001, which was timely with the inception of the program in 2001. Princeton utilizes the Farmer's Butcher Shop in Pennington, which distributes venison to Mercer Street Friends Food Bank. And in this most recent deer cull, harvested deer from Princeton contributed nearly 4,000 pounds of venison to the food bank in Trenton, which is approximately 16,000 servings to feed the hungry in Trenton. Prior to that, the butcher in Pennington being utilized, it was Game Butchers, which was in northern New Jersey. And the Hunters Helping the Hungry program is a very specific group of butchers that participate in this program and are approved by New Jersey Department of Health as well as New Jersey Department of Ag. A few other benefits of maintaining the safe population of deer include the reduction of transmission of infectious diseases, and as Trishka mentioned, the improvement to our local ecology. Increased deer densities increase the transmission of tick-borne illnesses. Lyme disease is the #1 vector-borne disease in America. It's also the #1 reportable disease in Princeton up until COVID-19. And incidence of Lyme disease that does appear to track deer densities in different areas, especially in the Northeast. We have, within the health department, conducted some light analysis when it comes to Lyme disease incidence and deer populations through some of our masters and doctoral interns. We're hoping to explore some of this in the near future. But deer also, as we've learned through the Animal Control Advisory Committee, they also transmit infectious agents to other livestock and other animals, including bovine tuberculosis, chronic wasting disease, which sometimes you'll hear about being in the central region of New Jersey. And we also want to talk a little bit about what was just recently found in Burlington County. Epizoonotic hemorrhagic disease, or EHD, was recently found in Burlington County. And obviously, as we've realized throughout this pandemic and other infectious diseases, human health has a direct tie to animal health. So this program and the emphasis on the program doesn't have just effects on motor vehicle accidents. It also has an impact on disease surveillance in our area. And that's something we actually want to expand upon, as Trishka mentioned, from an ecology perspective and from a biology perspective. And recently, as we've noticed from different members that have joined the Animal Control Advisory Committee, we've received an increased number of complaints with regards to overabundance of deer in particular neighborhoods or sections of town that are just decimating the landscape in that particular area. Well, as Trishka mentioned, the deer may not exceed the particular biological carrying capacity for that area. They have certainly exceeded human tolerance for deer-related conflicts in certain neighborhoods. On this last slide, just to talk a little bit about what we've started to notice, specifically looking at the last bullet point, we want to do a better job of keeping track of residential complaints, as we've received more so in the last few years, especially in the Riverside Drive and the north end of Prospect, where there's less coordinated management. So that's an area where we want to help out, and we've received some documented complaints. We're hoping to do a better job of just demonstrating what neighbors can do and how we can get individuals in there to help with management. And through that, as Trishka mentioned, again, the dissemination of deer harvest information, so individuals in town know what's happening locally and how they can help and how we're trying to help the overabundance of deer population. And then, as I mentioned, utilizing ecologists and biologists to determine the widespread impact beyond motor vehicle accidents. And the deer census is super important. The community-based deer management program does like to look at where the deer numbers are falling, especially within the harvest. Our animal control officer, Jim, has done a fantastic job looking and researching different methods of census. Typically, it's going through different areas and counting method. However, there are more advanced technologies like drone and infrared technology that actually can, greatly improve your idea and your perspective of what the deer population looks like in your community. And for a program as robust as Princeton's, we're probably at the point where we can take this on. So that's something that we're hoping to bring before council in the next year or so. Again, I just want to end with this. The deer harvest and the deer call in Princeton, when I joined in 2014, it's gone through many iterations with regards to the animal control officers that have been supportive of it. And I can't say enough for Jim Ferry, the animal control officer, and how much he supports this program. And, his dedication to the program has made it as successful as it is. And he is one of the best educators when it comes to meeting with residents and talking to them about some of their problems and their concerns over what's happening. So thank you, everybody, for your time. And Trishka and I'm sure we'll take some questions if there are any from council or the public.
Okay. Jeff, can you unshare? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thank you. Any questions?
Just before we go to questions, Jeff did mention population census, and I'm glad he brought it up because just when you get to the contract with White Buffalo, that includes, there's two components to that contract. One is the deer management. The other one is doing a count this fall. It's a technique called distance sampling. It's been used many times in Princeton. It doesn't give you, pinpoint accuracy, but it does give you very reliable, estimate of the size of the herd. And then with the possibility of then a second count using some of the other technologies that the Animal Control Advisory Committee has been looking at.
Okay, thank you. Council questions or anything on what Trishka and Jeff have shared with us? Dwayne.
It's interesting. I hate to see any sentient creature having to die, but I thank Trishka and Jeff for putting this into perspective. It's sad at the same time that deer have to die. At the same time, to some degree, it's not that it's either them or us. It's not that bad, but unfortunately, this is just and Mayor, I was trying not to make that into a joke. But it's the reality is the culling is important to our health, not just as Trishka and Jeff pointed out, motor vehicle. Avoiding motor vehicle accidents. I think I was looking at it in that kind of narrow perspective. But Jeff also mentioned with disease management and local ecology and all that type of thing. So thanks a lot. And one thing that surprised me though, what Trishka said was that deer, was it just this a certain species or deer in general? I mean, not they're the same species, but a certain type of deer, or is it deer in general were actually extinct in 1900?
This is what I just told you was based on the reports that were being put together right around the time that I came in. I know that it's specific to what the white-tailed deer, which is what we're talking about. I frankly don't know about other types of species of deer because I don't even know if there are any others in New Jersey other than white-tailed deer. Right. Obviously there are lots of other species elsewhere. I just don't know about New Jersey.
Sorry to put you on the spot with that, Trishka.
No, it's fine.
Good enough. Yeah, it's fine. Moving on. Thank you. It's enough about different species. Michelle.
Thank you. That was extremely informative and really impressive. Your knowledge and background and the research that you did. I think it's really revealing. I mean, as an animal lover as well, you never want to see animals suffer. And they really would suffer more if we don't cull the herd, and that there is really no one on top of the food chain. There is no natural predator for the deer other than us, the humans. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of a responsibility in a way to cull the herd, in the face of a town that really has no place to really hunt in the traditional sense. So thank you. Thanks for that. I appreciate it.
Mia.
Yes, thank you so much, Trishka and Jeff. I also wanted as a homework assignment for council, I would love to follow up and see why the state discontinued the contraceptive program if it was in fact successful. And I would love to see us maybe pass a resolution to encourage the state to resume that. I think that would be a preferable way to go. So maybe when we're encouraging them to bury the wires, we can also encourage them to.
They actually did it. They didn't discontinue it. It's that there were basically under hunting laws, you can't shoot at a deer within 450 feet of an occupiable structure without having the owner of that structure give you prior written permission. And you also can't hunt deer on someone's property, obviously, without that property owner's permission. The state interpreted those regulations to apply also to the darting that is necessary to tranquilize an animal in order to administer the immunocontraceptive. Problem is, a darted animal does not fall down immediately. And what it meant was that when white buffalo darted a deer, the deer would then go from where they had hit it with the dart and it would move. And they were not allowed to track it unless they had prior written permission from the property owners over whose properties they were going to have to track that deer, it becomes somewhat Kafkaesque. Like that's what I mean by there were just some, it was an interpretation of regulations that basically just brought the program to a complete halt. And it is very unfortunate. But the state did not technically discontinue.
And my other question was just I'm hoping that we can make sure that the meat is all used by people who need it. And if we can just, get verification of that, in addition to all the other stats that we collect, that would be very reassuring.
Yeah, and I want to thank Councilman Cohen. I know he had worked with Jim a little bit on trying to find a local butcher, and we did. So now all of the venison is making its way into Mercer County versus where it was going before, which was in central and north, but not all central.
That's fantastic. Thanks. Thank you both.
Eve?
Thank you so much to Trishka and Jeff. Really a great summation of why we're doing this, and just to enforce the point Michelle made, that this is a problem that we've caused, as we have caused many other environmental problems by bringing a species in that does not belong here, whether it's, barberry or autumn olive or other types of species that we thought were attractive and that would fill and, that we would enjoy, and then they get out of control and become, a danger and a threat to our local species. So it is, an unfortunate reality of our intervention in the natural world that we now have to intervene again to try to bring things a little bit more into balance. And one of the added benefits of keeping the population in check is that you don't have the deer starving to death during the winter when there's not enough food to support them. So, as also an animal lover, I hate to see that happen and hear about them. We have heard stories about that happening. And I just also want to highlight Jim Ferry's role, because during the season, he is out every night baiting, putting corn out for the deer. He brings every single deer that's culled to the butcher in Pennington, which is a great improvement for him because he used to have to drive to North Jersey. So he is intimately involved, incredibly responsible, just such an asset to this organization, so hardworking and so committed. So we're really lucky to have his involvement. And I think, as Jeff mentioned, he's really good with people. And, if somebody calls up and a deer has died on their air conditioner, which apparently is where deer like to die, he will, come retrieve the carcass, even though it's really not part of his job description, and use that as an opportunity to engage the homeowner about, what they've seen in terms of deer and deer on the property, and, looking for a way to help residents deal with the issues that they've been facing. And I would like to say that even though I'm in the former borough, we have a lot of deer in our neighborhood too. So it's not only the township, that people on the outskirts of the former borough also have, I'm sure, Mayor, that you have some visitors where you live also towards the edge of the borough. So anyway, but I just want to say thank you very much, for this, all this great information. And as Trishka has put at multiple points in her ordinances, animal control will be looking to get some experts involved who can document some of the impact on our songbirds and other native species of the deer, and hopefully to document how some of those species have recovered in the last 20 years, or how they're impacted by, the impact on the understory when the deer are more out of control. So anyway, thank you very much.
Thanks, Eve. Michelle, did you have a comment?
No, I was just cold. I was just.
Okay, sorry. Okay, I know we have a, thank you. We have a hand up from a member of the public. Adam, could you bring Lisa back in?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. My question relates to the actual area that the call will take place. Specifically, will it also cover the properties of the university and the Institute for Advanced Study? Because I know that, first of all, I believe it was back in late May, maybe, that the university conducted its own census, if you will, sampling of the deer population. But frankly, deer don't know boundaries, as Trishka was alluding to earlier, that they don't see it as one line versus another area, and they roam back and forth. So I see them moving from the golf course to the woods to the institute to the properties of the residents, and in and around they go. So I'm just wondering if the university and the institute's lands are going to be part of this.
So the institute, no. We've tried pretty much from day one to gain access to the institute woods, and we've never succeeded. White buffalo does have some sites where it operates that are sort of on the edges. So it's not the institute woods proper, but it's in the vicinity. And that's partly why, the baiting is so important. Jeff mentioned that, Jim Ferry goes out and puts bait out every day. And that's absolutely, without him, the program wouldn't work. And the baiting is very important because that's how you can draw the deer to the stands where the sharpshooters are. And that's how you can try to at least have a bit of an impact in areas where you can't maybe gain direct access, but if you can get to a property that's adjacent and then start to draw the deer there, you can have an impact that way. The university, by contrast, I don't know if White Buffalo operates on any university properties. I know John Zampini's group does, most notably the Butler Tract, and they've been able to, they were very successful on the Butler Tract, and they've got a good working relationship with the university. As I said, I don't know all the private properties where White Buffalo operates. A lot of that is by design. It's, we try to keep those names as confidential as possible, and therefore I have no idea and I don't want to know.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just want to add that it's unclear. The university is moving a lot of parking from Prospect to Butler, and Jim was saying at our meeting this past week that it's unclear, undetermined at this point if we will have access to Butler, which there's not a lot of. This is the neighborhood in which I live, and there's not a lot of other sites. And as Jeff was saying, or I think as Jeff was saying, that in this area there's already a lot of complaints and a lot of damage to the environment. So it's not clear what'll happen there, unfortunately.
Okay. All right. Any other questions or comments on the two presentations? If not, we'll jump back to the resolutions that these presentations have led up to. Okay, great. We were discussing 21-293, and I think we just need a motion and a second on that one. Eve's got the motion. David's got the second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, 21-294, resolution approving award of contract for extraordinary and unspecifiable services to White Buffalo, Inc. for specialized deer management services and for distance sampling. Is there a motion? Dwayne was the quickest. Eve's got the second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. 21-295, resolution endorsing application for designation of a special deer management area, an application for community-based deer management plan 2021-2022. Is there, David's got the motion. Is there a second? Okay, that was close. I'll give it to Eve. Thank you very much. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, those are the three dealing with deer management. Jeff, thank you very much. I hope we're done with you for the night.
All done. Thank you, sir.
All right, buddy. Take care. All right. 21-296, resolution awarding a contract in the not to exceed amount of $77,975 with straight edge stripping for the striping for the 2021 pavement striping and marking contract. Is there a motion? David, thank you. Is there a second? Michelle's got the second. Questions, comments? All in favor, please. Oh, wait a minute. A hand just went up. Lisa, Adam, can you bring Lisa back in?
Yes, Mayor.
Thank you again, Mayor, Council. Deanna, my question is whether any of this contract will address the pavement markings that the Pedestrian and Bicycle Advisory Committee has been requesting for the bike boulevards that were installed a year ago.
That will be up to our discussion at a special meeting with the Pedestrian and Bike Advisory Committee. At this time, the striping contract is mainly focused on centerline striping and crosswalks that have faded around town. There is some allowance for the sharrows as well, but we had limited contract dollars available through our capital budget. And so it will have to be a point of discussion if something else can be left out to accommodate this striping.
I was wondering, there were 750 square foot items. It's the last item on the list of the bid contract. What was that referring to?
Oh, was that related to sharrows? I don't have it in front of me.
It doesn't say anything specific. It just
says traffic markings.
Square foot rather than linear foot.
Right, various traffic markings that we put around town. Typically that could be sharrows, it could be hydrant markings, it could be inlet markings.
Yeah. David?
Just to follow up to that, Deanna, I think we talked about this maybe in the agenda setting meeting, but I think you said that there are unit prices so that things can be added to the contract based on, I mean, we might have to come back to council for additional funding, but
yes,
we can add to the contract if the discussion with PBAC indicates that such is required.
Correct. Right. We can go up to 120% of the 119% of the contract amount through a change order. When you exceed the 20%, there's more legal paperwork that is necessary. But we can also look at putting out another contract bid if the amount exceeded what we could do in the 119% of the contract.
Okay. Michelle.
I already asked this, but I'll ask again. Deanna, it included the right-left turn striping at the Palmer Square.
It can include that, yes. Okay. Yes, as that is subject to approval by the Department of Transportation as part of our access permit. Mm-hmm. But yes, it could be included in that contract.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, any other questions or comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Okay. 21-297, resolution authorizing the award of a contract to Deere & Company, Educational Services Commission of New Jersey, contract number ESCNJ 18/19-25 for a John Deere 1575 terrain cut with comfort cab commercial front mower in the amount of $34,046.31. And John Deere 72-inch 7-iron Pro commercial side discharge mower deck in the amount of $4,125.42 for use by the Recreation Department. Is there a motion? Thank you, Dwayne. Is there a second? Thank you, Eve. All in favor? Any questions or comments? Eve.
I just want to make a quick comment because we did have an inquiry from a resident just to reassure people that our Department of Public Works and our rec department do coordinate in terms of the equipment that they buy and in terms of sharing responsibility for facilities that they plow. So it's not each team kind of out for their own. There is a coordination among the different departments to ensure that our streets and our facilities and PFARs, which is our emergency squad that we all rely on, even when the snow falls, is plowed out and able to reach people when needed.
Thank you, Eve. Any other questions or comments?
A lot of deer on the agenda tonight.
It's deer everywhere. Okay.
Lisa has her hand up again.
Yes, we do have one.
Sorry, I missed that. Yep. All right. Bring Lisa back.
Good evening once again. My question is related to pedestrians. Last winter, we had many paths that were unpassable because of the snow. And I understand that this new equipment could potentially have a snow plow attached to it, but I don't know whether that's part of what you're acquiring or if the snow plow from the old equipment that is no longer serviceable can be reapplied with this equipment. But I'm hoping that the snow plow will be something that can be used for the next winter storm.
Mayor, I can add that this piece of machinery does have a blade and a brush to be used exactly for that. It can be used to clear paths, and my understanding from speaking with Evan is that is one of the ways it will be used this winter.
So that's part of the purchase price?
Correct.
Great, thank you.
The one thing I would advise everyone to understand is that, especially last year when we had a lot of heavy snow, the staff we have available and all the places we have to remove snow make it hard to get to all the sidewalks and everything in a timely manner. So anyway, I'm just saying that because that is something at some point, if winters continue to go back to, we've had warm winters, if we suddenly start having snowfall a lot every year, we might have to look at how we're managing snow removal. Anyway.
It gets expensive too.
Mark, and there's also a distinction between what the rec department clears versus the public works department.
Yeah, correct. Right. They each do different areas, and it's correct. But again, between the staff of both, the amount of work we expect them to do when it comes to snow removal for a normal snow of a couple inches, okay, but for anything significant, it's a huge challenge. David.
Just to Deanna's point, so is the goal, though, that the municipality clears shared side paths wherever they may occur, or off-road shared paths, as opposed to sidewalks, which we know residents are responsible for?
Well, we have sidewalks by parks, by our municipal buildings, by things like that we also do. So that's part of the challenge, is getting to those in a timely manner.
But all of, we do those sidewalks and all of the shared paths that, those wider asphalt. I think Deanna knows what I'm asking about.
Yeah, I think we need clarification from the Public Works Department. I don't want to misstate what their responsibilities are for those shared use paths. So that's something that we could discuss in the infrastructure and operations meetings.
Okay. Bringing us back. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Okay, thank you. 21-298, resolution authorizing the award of a contract to York Fence Company for the purchase of an automated gate for the River Road facility in the amount of $36,535. Is there a, Michelle's got the motion. Is there a second? Eve's got the second. Questions, comments on the motion? Michelle?
I just throw this out there because we talked about the fueling station backup or second fueling station. Once we have a fence with a fob system, an electric fence. I know there are problems with River Road, but we had also talked about that as being redundancy as a second fueling station. So just throw it out there. Is there any plan to put a backup facility there in terms of a backup tank?
So we had, go ahead, Deanna.
Oh, I was going to say, we were currently looking at what the ultimate usage of the site at River Road could be because there are environmental constraints on the land. And we can take that into consideration as one of the future needs.
Yeah, I know the old tank went there and it was cracked or something. So I didn't know what the
the tank that we removed from where the PFAS building got built ended up getting out there, but was unusable. And anything we want to do at River Road, I don't think we can do anything that where a DEP permit is going to be requested until all the DEP required cleanup is done. They're definitely not going to give us, let us do anything new until we take care of the existing. So, but a good point, good location to talk about.
Thanks.
Yep, no, thank you. Any other questions or comments on that? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, 21-299, resolution authorizing the award of a contract to B&T Tools, Inc. for the purchase of an air conditioner recycling machine for 27 North Harrison Street garage in the amount of $19,195. Is there a motion? Thank you, Eve. Second by David. Any questions or comments? David?
I'll just let the rest of council know I checked in with Tim Vanetta, who runs the garage there, because I was curious what this was. It is required by the state that we recover the coolant from any air conditioner in a vehicle that's being taken out. And this is a replacement equipment for a 20-year-old piece of equipment, which, number one, couldn't deal with all the current coolants that are used in different vehicles, and also is kind of aged out. So that's what it is, if you're interested.
David, you beat me to it, because I read this air conditioner, whatever the term was, and I went and tried to find it on Google, and I found a lot of stuff about what to do with your old air conditioners, and then I finally emailed Dan and received that same information. So
and I got some emails from the public, so I know people read the agenda packet very carefully.
Good to know. Okay. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. The consent agenda is next. Is there, just want to make sure there's nothing from the consent agenda anybody needs to question or pull out of the consent agenda. If not, would someone want to move the consent agenda, which is 21-300, payment of bills, 21-301, appointments to boards, commissions, committees, 21-302, contract for vehicle lift adapters, 21-303, performance trailers for a trailer, and 21-304, a membership in the fire department. Sorry, Leticia, is that a motion?
Yes.
Very much. Michelle's got the second. All in favor, please say aye.
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 That's everyone. Would someone named David like to make a motion?
I would move to adjourn.
Is there a second? All in favor, say aye.
And I must say, if you're if you're hearing that noise, for those of you who are actually at your office and not at home, good luck getting home.
Yes. Yes.
Stay safe.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, everybody.
Yeah. All
Good
right.
night.